I just wasted 3 hours of my life. Before watching it, I thought it might be as good as the last one. After watching it, I thought, why wouldn't I just watch Finding Nemo instead?
Oh
What?
my gosh.
No.
The
that's not
first hour, the same as Avatar 1. The second hour, basically just Finding Nemo. The third hour, another version of Titanic.
That's
What?
inaccurate on almost on every level.
I don't know. That breakdown, ooh.
This movie is poorly edited and is no different than the first one.
Okay, now those 2 points are just
No,
categorically
that's just,
false.
yeah, hyperbolically wrong.
That was a 1-star review on IMDb. Hello, and welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series and films. I am your host, Andrew, joined as always by Steven
Hello there.
and Ryan.
What's up?
So how's it going, guys?
Hey, we're here. That's half the battle.
It's early in the morning.
Is the other half the battle red lasers and blue lasers?
It is.
Yes.
I mean, sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's early on a cold morning here.
Cold-ish. It's not that cold.
That's 'cause
Cold enough.
it's like we're recording outside in the Antarctic.
Well, this is
We're ice
a
fishing here in the
mostly
studio.
unfinished base, but I had some concerns like overnight. It's just sat like at 30 degrees down here all night or something.
Yeah, I mean, he did have his toboggan on.
I did. I came prepared. My
Yeah.
car sits outside. All right, it's cold.
So this week we are talking about the sci-fi epic Avatar, The Way of Water, not The Way of the Water or Way of the Water, The Way of Water.
What was it you said in the chat? Avatar 2, Wet Water Boogaloo.
Wet Water
That
Boogaloo,
was you
yeah.
said
Oh,
that.
I said no.
Yeah.
He said the first time though.
Boy,
What'd you say?
Ryan's been on some cold medicine lately, and you can tell.
Where am I
Avatar
exactly?
2,
Who are
Underwater
you guys?
Boogaloo.
Underwater Boogaloo. Maybe
Underwater
that was it.
Yeah,
Boogaloo.
there
That's
it
what you said. Yeah.
So I think that's probably a better title for this.
Well,
is
calling it
Underwater
wet
Boogaloo.
water boogaloo is kind of dumb. Like, water is wet. Yeah, we get it. No.
Right. I think I was looking for the same electric boogaloo syllable. So
Yeah.
electric 3,
Yeah.
wet water is 3. Whatever.
But yeah, so we're reviewing Avatar, the second Avatar this week, directed by James Cameron. However, before we get into our thoughts and general ideas about this show or movie, I guess, let's talk about some things that are coming out in 2023.
Yeah, 2022 is wrapping up.
Yep, we are right at the end here, and I kind of want to hear what all of us are looking forward to in the coming year. It doesn't have to be one singular thing. It could be a couple things here
Yeah.
and there.
Well, we just got hit with a bunch of trailers right before
Mhm.
Avatar of stuff that's either hitting right at Christmas.
We sure did.
or a lot of stuff for next year.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be film. It can be series, anime, whatever, even a book, if you're really interested in a book.
I don't know of any books coming out. The last George
don't
R.R.
read.
Martin is coming out next year. Just kidding.
I mean, you never know. He could finish.
He has 1,200 pages written with 600 more to go. Buddy, that is 3 books. Just publish 2.
Are you sure you're just not counting all the blog posts he does about the Jets?
Of all the teams, why the Jets? I
it's
just don't
George R.R.
understand.
Okay, so Ryan, I want you to start.
Oppenheimer. I saw the
Good
trailer at the front of
choice.
this movie, and I was already excited because I'm a Christopher Nolan fan. And I was like, it's such an interesting story. It's about basically the creation of the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
And
It's the Manhattan Project.
yeah, the Manhattan Project. And the trailer did such a good job of showing off like the tension of like
Mm-hmm.
that
Well,
idea of like when we detonate this, what if it doesn't stop? Could we be like ending the world here? Because they didn't, which
They
is
didn't know.
buck wild to think about. But then the other thing is that Christopher Nolan filmed an atomic explosion without
not an actual
Not
atomic.
not
an actual, but like the visuals for what they were
Yes.
using for the atomic explosion without CG.
Yeah,
it's all
it's
like
all
practical.
yeah.
And like I'm fascinated to see like
Can
what
you
they did.
imagine Christopher Nolan coming to his special effects guy and be like,
Right.
"Hey, all right, I need a nuclear explosion.
I need a
without the
mushroom
nuclear."
cloud
except
without
for-
the atomic
He
element.
probably just said it in one sentence. I need a practical effect for a nuclear explosion.
Yeah, and the guy was like, "What?"
Yeah.
Yeah, Oppenheimer does look quite good.
Yeah.
The guy that I never can remember his actor's name.
Cillian
Murphy.
Yeah,
He's Thomas Shelby.
Yeah,
in,
well,
Peaky
he's
Blinders.
Scarecrow in
No,
in Batman.
He's in a bunch of
He's
stuff.
great, honestly.
Yeah, he's a fantastic actor, and he has such a good facial structure.
Yeah.
That he has that look, especially when he's got like the really straight brimmed 40s style hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, I think especially for this kind of, it's gonna because it's gonna be a drama, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not really a biopic.
He's a good choice for an actor. If we're gonna have a story that's really focused on the character and their interactions and discussions, right?
Yeah.
You need someone who can get on screen and carry it. And I think he's a good choice.
I think so too. And what they've done with the trailer is there, obviously it's a lot of tension and everything like that. It's not going to be an action film by any means.
No.
It's going to be just a character drama, and that's I love those kind of shows.
Oh yeah.
So you ready for an interesting one here? I pulled up the movie just to see who else was in it. Robert Downey Jr.
Oh yeah, he's at the end of the trailer.
Yeah, and Matt Damon.
Yeah, he's in the trailer too.
Matt Damon's in the trailer?
He's talking to Oppenheimer. He's the voiceover of the trailer.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to lie. I love Matt Damon.
I mean, Matt Damon's solid.
Yeah, nothing wrong with Matt Damon.
There's I don't know, just like every movie I see him in, I'm like, yeah, this is fun.
Yeah.
I feel like he doesn't make bad movies.
Not
that
really.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
He's made a lot of really good movies, but generally the floor it only goes so far down.
Yeah, like I mean, probably my favorite Matt Damon film would still be Good Will Hunting. I think.
Oh yeah, I think that's a lot of people's safe.
He also has really great choices and cameos.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's got some fun cameos like in Interstellar,
Eurotrip,
Dogma.
Yeah.
So the thing with Matt Damon, it's kind of similar to George Clooney in that like there's only a few movies where he really pushes himself outside of just kind of being a different shade of Matt Damon.
Just being a Matt Damon.
Because like George Clooney's mostly just
George Clooney.
Which shade of George Clooney do you want? And then you got Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, where he's kind of like outside of that
just
box
bonkers.
a little bit. Yeah, Matt Damon's like the same way where like there's very few times where you see him where he's completely not just doing some kind of different take on Matt Damon. But he's a really solid actor. I like Matt Damon.
Yeah.
All right, so Steven, what about you?
Okay, so this is another trailer from Avatar.
Okay.
So Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah.
I actually wasn't that impressed by that trailer.
So I'm bringing this up because of that, right? Because the first movie is just one absolute banger, phenomenal. Go check out our review on it.
Yeah, we did it around this time last year.
Shameless shill. The concern then I think was, hey, if they're coming out with the second one, like they did such a good job with the first one that like where do you go?
Down.
And that's my concern. So it's not that I'm necessarily like super excited for it. It's I want to see in the same way for Avatar, I want to see it to see like where can this go? Right?
Yeah.
Well, I think what the first one did so well though was like the emotion. Like they really hit you with like
big time.
A lot of that and you cared for each character in a really good way where it wasn't just like they were throwing stuff at the screen. So like with this one, with the trailer at least.
Get zany with it. Yeah.
They had so many Spider-Man running around at one point. I was like, okay, are we going to dial this in? But there was a lot of the emotional stuff with Miles and his mom in the trailer too.
At the start, yeah.
I'm still hopeful.
But I think the trailer just didn't do a good job at kind of like, because I had kind of avoided the trailer when it first released on social media.
Same. Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'll just see it in theaters. And then it popped up. And I'm like, oh, cool. Here we go. And then I got through the trailer and I was like, I guess.
Well, it didn't really do a good job of explaining like what's the story about.
Yeah, and they used a lot of the original film footage too.
Yeah.
So
like flashback-esque. Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. I want to
now,
be.
It can be, right? Because you've complained about this before of the way modern movie trailers are cut.
Oh,
it
they're
could
terrible.
just be that the way it's cut doesn't represent the movie well.
Yeah.
And hopefully, so far, based on our impressions, hopefully that's the case.
Yeah.
And that the whole zany, we've got 6 million Spider-Men running around. Look at all this one-off character from the comics that nobody ever read is just like, a 5-minute segment and then move on.
Yeah, and that's probably what'll happen.
Most likely, yeah.
So I'll go now. And I really just have like a short list here of some stuff.
We bounce this back around.
We can. Okay, so I'm going to go with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Oh, that was going to be my next
one.
one.
I knew that was on your list.
One, I love Tom Cruise. 2, I love the Mission Impossible films.
I love Mission Impossible too. I'm so not 2, the second one specifically,
also,
which it is. It's John Woo. It is what it is. But I mean, like,
Mission
the
Impossible
series
as well.
As
also,
well.
Yeah.
And also.
So, this is, going to be Tom Cruise running, doing his thing. The past couple Mission Impossible films have been quite good.
Pretty much ever since Mission Impossible 3 came out,
Oh,
it's just been boom, boom,
yeah.
boom.
Because
Yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of the first and second one.
See, I really like the first
The
one.
first
The
one was
first one
great
is fine.
because it was such a good movie version of the old
show,
TV
yeah.
series.
Yeah.
It's not a true modern action spy flick.
Yeah,
No.
when you start getting to 3 and beyond, you have a lot more modern style kind of things. And 3 is kind of tough because it's J.J. Abrams.
3, yeah. So for me, it's like the
But Philip
first
Seymour
one.
Hoffman kills
Philip
it.
Philip Seymour Hoffman just
The first one for me, I saw it in theater when it came out,
Same.
and I was blown away.
Yeah.
You know, it was like one of those movies that hit in the 90s that just, like you're saying,
It was
like it
great.
updated the
Yeah.
show.
Mhm.
And I
Very
never
well.
watched the show a ton on
Mhm.
cable, but I would see it, you know, in syndication
Yeah.
every now and then. And so when it came out, I was like, this is a spy thriller. This is what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
You know, this is awesome. And then the second one, I was a huge John Woo fan at the time.
Oh, okay.
Loved Face Off. I had imported VHS copies of The Killer and Hard Boiled, right? Both his Chow Yun Fat, you know,
Yeah.
action movies. So I was already like, release the doves, slow motion, give me that John Woo
Yeah.
action,
I mean,
baby.
you know, submachine guns akimbo on a motorcycle.
On a motorcycle,
Like, that was-
on a front wheelie.
I was like, eat it like soup. I loved it. I still have that VHS copy of Hard Boiled. So when Mission Impossible 2 came out, it was for me, it was like watching you know, like a Jackie Chan American movie.
Yeah.
Of like, oh, okay, this is all right, but John Woo does better action
On
in
his
his
own.
native,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
Hong Kong
He
type
does.
productions. But I still liked it because I was a John Woo fan.
Yeah.
In retrospect, because I've watched all of them recently because I bought like the Blu-ray box set.
Oh, nice.
And like, man, it don't hold up.
No,
No, it
not
doesn't.
at all.
It's
not at all.
very, very, very like a weird choice to go from the first movie to that one.
Which was
It's such a 180.
yeah.
Yeah. And then, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Yeah, and then moving on to like the more recent ones, which are much more modern action films.
Yeah.
that really kind of defined a lot of what more modern action films kind of did over
yeah.
the course. Like Ghost
Them-
Protocol is probably my favorite.
I love Ghost Protocol.
Oh, it's so good.
Like
I don't know.
that,
The 5 is really good too.
I know they're all really good.
But that run of Mission Impossibles and kind of the Bourne series,
Mhm.
kind of, I mean, they basically, those set of movies basically told James Bond what James Bond was going to be.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And for several other series, you look at and you're like, okay, well, they did this in, you know, Bourne Identity or whatever.
Yeah.
They did this in Mission Impossible. And I mean, Tom Cruise has such sway. I mean, look at what they just did with Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
And you know, he does all of his own stunts. He's a known quantity at this point. We already in the trailer for Dead Reckoning, we do get to see a little bit of his big stunt that I guess he does, where
Yeah.
he drives off of a cliff and basically base jumps
Yeah.
off a motorcycle.
Well, and my favorite part of that is like, you know, Christopher McQuarrie, the director, is like watching it happen. And you can see that like, am I about to kill Tom Cruise? Is Tom Cruise going to make it? Am I about to lose my biggest bankable star? Am I about to watch this man just yeet himself off a cliff and die on the rocks?
You almost wonder because, you know, when you film a movie, you don't have to film things sequentially. If they're like, save that for last.
So,
Just so we
If it
have
goes
a film.
wrong, we still have a film.
so this is fun. I leaned over to my wife while we were watching that scene in the trailer, and I was like, man, Tom Cruise is crazy. And she goes, do you think this is the only time he feels alive?
I mean,
The only way he can feel alive.
Is this the only way
Strap
he-
me on
no,
the
I
outside
think-
of that plane.
Sorry. She said, is this the only way he can feel? I think that was the exact quote. Is this the only way he can feel? I was like, I don't know, man. It's starting to look that way.
It sure does.
okay, so Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, that part 1 is
Part 1.
yeah, because you know
Classic.
parts are the new in thing now.
We've got other parts coming
Ever
up.
since that old Harry Potter started it.
All right, Ryan, we all get one more choice.
Okay, I'll go with TV show The Last of Us coming
Oh,
out
yeah.
in early January. I
I'm
believe.
excited for that. I don't know anything about the games.
Yeah.
I just like Pedro
Pascal.
Yeah.
and you know it looks good.
So I'm a huge fan of the games. I've bought I think 2 versions of The Last of Us at this point. I'm about to
Mhm.
buy a third probably because they keep remastering it and making it even better. But it was one of those games that I played upon release in 2013,
Mhm.
late 2013, and man, it was just a revelation for me. The storytelling and it is a lot of people I think go into it differently.
Mhm.
It's definitely a linear game,
Yeah.
and it's definitely like the authors are telling you a story
Yeah.
type thing. So I think a lot of people bashed it because it wasn't like Mass Effect or something where you can have 88 different permutations of your own
Yeah.
story.
Oh,
Yeah.
but
That's not
Mass
what
Effect
this
3
is.
was like you can have so many different endings. And it's like, but what if they're all the same?
But what if they don't matter? So it's I think if you come into it from a different perspective on games, it's a linear story and it is their story, they're telling it to you.
Yeah.
But there's so much environmental storytelling in the games that's what I'm not concerned, but I'm eager to see how they solve that problem in the show. Because anytime you make an adaptation of a game, you're basically removing the interactive part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So like by default, in a lot of ways, could be worse than the initial product.
Yeah.
You know, like the one I always think of is the newest Tomb Raider movie with Alicia Vikander.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically adapting the 2013 Tomb Raider reboot, which I loved. I played it. Watched the movie. I was bored to tears because they told the exact same story and they just removed.
Just worse.
They removed me being able to explore and solve puzzles. So like me watching her like solve a puzzle in 30 seconds on screen is not as fun as me figuring out a puzzle. You know what I mean in the game.
It's not interactive.
Uncharted had some of that issue as well.
Right.
Where, like they did something like that was totally a mini game in the game. I could tell just looking at what's happening. That was totally a mini game.
It's like
in the
we
game.
didn't need to see this because like we know how.
There's no interaction.
Yeah. And I feel like if they just lean on the emotion of it, it'll be fine. And as long as you have really good performances, that's really what elevated The Last of Us more than anything. Because if you like,
because another mocap was like very like cutting edge kind of level
it was
of performance,
way ahead of its time. But on top of that, it was the performances from Ashley Johnson and Troy Baker that were like next level of like, this is not normally how video game actors operate.
Well, and wasn't that one of the first video games that really made like I'll say bringing in stars like movie stars and actors into those roles for video games to like do mocap roles? Maybe not. I don't know.
I mean that's been done
really
for a long
because
time.
like Mass Effect, you had Martin Sheen, you had other like there were bigger names and other stuff.
Did like Mark Hamill voice Wing Commander? If you go way back,
yeah. Tim Curry was in like Command and Conquer: Red Alert 2.
He was. That's right.
So like it was for me. It
I was
was
talking more like an actual performance,
like a mocap. Performance.
It was more of a like we have voice actors who are great at this. Let's see how they do with also performance capture and also and they also the way they directed it and the way they like got to play off each other in the scenes, you know, because they showed a lot of the behind the scenes stuff and it's kind of similar to Avatar, really in a lot of ways when you look at it. So, anyways, to digress away from the game, but the point is the game is held in high regard by a lot of people because of the story. So, like having this version of it in a TV show being accessible to everybody, removing that barrier of having to play a game or own the system or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and just be introduced to the story.
Instead, you just have to pay a monthly fee to whatever subscription service it comes out
HBO
on.
Max.
That's still cheaper than buying a game.
It's still way cheaper than a PlayStation 5 or whatever. So.
There you go.
So I'm excited about it. I can already tell from the latest trailer they're remixing a couple of things and they're changing stuff, which again, for me is good because it's like, I don't want to just see the same story, less interactive. Yeah. Because I can just replay the game.
Yeah.
Like, that would be better for me. So I want to see what they do new. I love Pedro Pascal. Bella Ramsey, is that her name? No, that was her name in Game of Thrones. The actress that's playing Ellie. That's going to be the big one for me. Because Ellie was like the heart and soul of the first one. And Ashley Johnson did her voiceover and was Ellie to me. So like to see a totally different Joel and Ellie is going to be tough to like wrap my head around. Yeah. But I'm excited for it.
Cool. Steven?
Man, you limited me to just one choice here. This is tough. Because there's some great options out there coming up. I think.
You want a drum roll?
I think I'm gonna have to go with. I want to pick between three options here. Screw it. I'm gonna go with Transformers.
Oh no!
Take me. I don't care.
The Beast Wars one?
Yeah. Take me in here.
Ew.
So we're getting away from Michael Bay.
What kind of hot take is this?
I'm just here to be different, all right? Look, it doesn't matter. Whenever there's a trailer and Optimus Prime walks on screen and Peter Cullen starts talking,
I mean, he has
chills,
a good voice,
right? He's like just such a great voice. Yeah. And I don't know. I watched the old Beast Wars TV show. This terrible CGI. I can't imagine how bad that looks now going back.
I'm sure it's
like reboot.
Yes.
Megabyte.
But yeah, you know what? I'm ready to be hurt again.
Yeah.
I didn't watch like the last two.
Did you watch Bumblebee?
No, I just said I didn't watch
Oh,
like, the
sorry.
last
I
two Transformers.
interrupted you saying
yeah.
you didn't watch it to ask if you watched it.
Yeah. Because, I just was like, I just don't think I want to do this.
What I was going to
And-
say is like Bumblebee is like post-Bay, right?
Yeah.
And
I
it
heard
was,
it was actually okay.
it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
It was
I meant to check it
better
out.
than, to me, the Michael Bay,
Like
the
dark,
Bayham.
dark Side of the Moon
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It still wasn't quite where I wanted it, though.
Well, again,
But-
you never know.
You never know.
But I mean, Beast Wars, let's get weird with it. Let's have some different robots on screen. And I'm just ready for some giant robots to fight each other on screen.
Hey.
Make a Gundam movie, you cowards.
I mean, there is one by Legendary Pictures that is in development.
It's been in development for
a while.
A while. And
Yeah.
it
How
probably
long is a
will never-
while? Like a decade?
A couple years, 5-ish.
I
Sure.
feel like we were teased the fact that it was in production pre-COVID,
yeah.
like 2018, 2017.
Well, yeah, and then,
And
then
obviously COVID
COVID
happened.
pushed everything
Yeah.
back by 4 years, basically. So, but yeah, I mean, screw it. I just want to see some big robots
The
fight on screen.
CGI looks a little questionable in the trailer, but again, it's not the film, and you can't really judge it.
You
off
never know
that.
what you're actually. They could always just turn around and make these poor VFX artists sweat and slave.
I mean, that's what they did with Sonic.
that's what
so-
they've done with a lot of
Yeah.
things.
Okay, so moving on to me, and I'm gonna
Back
go
to me.
back to me.
Back
So
to
I'm
the
gonna,
important part.
I'm gonna move off of films and
Okay.
TV. Well, it is a TV series.
You're not going to anime, are you?
I am going in.
Hey! Never.
Unknowable.
Never.
Somebody dropped some dishes in the background.
So actually, just yesterday, before we are recording this episode, which you don't know what day this is, they just announced season 2 of Spy Family and a film that are both apparently slated to come out in 2023.
Okay.
All right.
So currently we are at the end of 2022. We are finishing up Spy Family season 1, part 2, and then we'll probably have a whole season worth of nothing. And then they'll probably either start season 2 in the spring, or they're going to start season 2 in the fall.
Yeah.
And maybe
maybe,
only
like-
do a single core instead of a double core
And then cap it off with a movie.
with the
maybe.
movie. Now,
Is the movie going to be canon, or is it going to be one of these like
so that's
side
the thing.
shoot
Most of the time
movies?
with any kind of shonen, most movies are not canon or
Yeah.
not
Or
considered
they're
it.
very much so like side story esque.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the way that it works a lot with Japanese like anime films that come out,
Mhm.
even if it comes out next year, the U.S. audience will likely not be able to see it until a year later.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just because of how their release schedule works, unless something like Fathom Events or G Kids or whatever
They
feels
pick
like
it
they,
up
they
and
want to
put it
pick
in
it up and
theaters.
put
Oh,
it in
and
theaters.
have an actual theatrical
Yeah.
run over
That'd
here.
be cool.
Yeah.
I'd be down for that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's if you haven't been keeping up with season 1, part 2 this past fall season for Spy Family, it's actually been quite fun. It's a lot more of the same, but that's kind of what you
ultimately,
expect.
it's a shonen. There's a lot of bloat in
There
these
is,
stories.
yeah. Now that said, if you haven't listened to our review of season 1, part 1 of Spy Family, it is available right now on any of your local podcast things.
Favorite podcast.
All your
provider.
favorite podcast things.
See, look at that, Ryan. We shilled. Where's your shill?
Yeah.
Golly.
I got the big shield coming up later.
Oh,
So just an honorable mention list here. Creed 3 comes out,
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I
which
still
I'm
gotta
super
watch.
excited for. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. It
Yep.
looks silly, but I'm still going to watch it.
I think that has the potential to be awesome.
I do
As
too.
long as it understands what it is
Yeah.
and the audience and kind of the memes it needs to hit on.
Yeah,
I think it could be really
I think
fun.
it'd be, and Chris Pine is a good character to play the bard in.
Yeah.
In that.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely.
I'm excited for that. Then I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but Dune Part 2.
It is. It was
Yeah.
confirmed when I looked for this list because it was on my list.
Okay, yeah, it says
still says-
November 3rd, but I don't believe that.
I saw
it
a
could
couple
be
lists that
pushed.
had it at like TBA.
Yeah, but yeah.
'cause-
So hypothetically, Dune Part 2 is going to come out, which I'm super
I'm here
excited
for, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
IMAX all the way,
yeah.
baby.
And according to Timothy Chalamet, they have finished or not production, but finished filming for the film. So
Okay, that's the first hurdle, right?
yeah. So
Typically, yes.
Yes.
you would think so. But yeah, so I'm super excited for those. There's technically the Mario film that's coming out.
I don't know anyone who's actually excited for that, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm cautiously optimistic for it, but yeah, it's
You never know.
Yeah.
you never know.
Okay, so we've.
well, hold on now.
Oh, okay.
One more.
One
honorable
more.
mention.
Yep.
65.
Okay, I haven't looked at the trailer for this. But it is Adam
It's
Driver,
Adam Driver. So
fighting dinosaurs.
I'm already like, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a reverse Planet of the Apes kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where
So
he gets sent back in time.
yeah, it's Adam Driver. I'm going to see it.
Yeah, like that. That's
Yeah.
already the biggest appeal for me is oh, he's just like the main character here doing stuff. Like, yeah, like,
Yeah.
sign me up.
What's the description of the movie? He's a main character doing stuff. Sign me up.
Dinosaurs.
Okay, so we've spent far too much time just talking about stuff that's coming up. We have to talk about the thing that we are reviewing this week, which is Avatar 2 Underwater Boogaloo,
Yes.
The Way of Water. So before we get into all the little nitty-gritty details, I'm going to give you a synopsis. So Jake Sully lives with his newfound family formed on the extrastellar planet, or stellar moon, excuse me. It's a moon, not a planet.
It's not just stellar, it's extra stellar.
Extrastellar.
Moon Pandora. Once a familiar threat returns to finish what was previously started, Jake must work with Neytiri and the army of Na'vi race to protect their home. So that's kind of close to what happens.
That's pretty good without getting into spoilers.
Without
Yeah.
giving it all away.
Yeah, so this is directed by James Cameron, which we've already stated. This is starring Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldana, Sigourney Weaver, Stephen Lang, Kate Winslet, and Cliff Curtis as just the big characters through the film. We have a budget of, there's kind of a questionable budget here. So a couple sources say it's $250 million. A couple others say that it's $350 million. Some say it's $400 million.
I wonder if some of them are rolling in costs because
like marketing
they've
costs.
already started
this was
filming.
before, $400 million was considered before PR.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They've already started filming the next movie.
They have.
So I wonder if some of that budget, if it was kind of the production was all rolled into one and they're picking up, and that's where we're seeing 400 and 350.
It's possible.
Is they're tacking on some costs that really were associated with 3 and not 2?
Yeah.
I feel like for what we get and what we saw, 250 was probably plenty of budget.
Probably,
honestly.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, so we have the budget there, and so when we talk about box office numbers here in just a second, just keep in mind that we are recording this basically on Sunday morning, the weekend of release.
Yeah.
So we don't have
We don't have
definite
firm
numbers.
opening weekend numbers.
Yeah, so by the time you listen to this, it could be completely different than what we are saying.
Yeah,
But this is
we're
a
talking
general
about projections,
Yeah.
expectations.
general outline of what we think is going to happen just based on what we've read and those kind of things. So the Thursday preview showing box office was 17 million.
That's domestic only.
Domestic. Yeah, this is only domestic only, and I'll talk about international here in a second. Then we have 53 million on Friday.
Mhm.
Then question mark 45 million on
So
Saturday.
that's an expected or projected number at this
Yeah.
point.
And then international for basically Thursday, Friday, and Saturday-ish was about 127 to 140 million.
Right.
Is kind of what they were expecting there. And so that projects it to be roughly like 130 to 150 million, I think, domestic for opening weekend.
Yeah.
And you're going to be pushing 200 million internationally.
Oh, easy, yeah.
Easily.
So then the next kind of thing is like, well, how did
Sorry,
the first,
pushing 300
Yeah,
million.
yeah, I
That's
was gonna say, I was
127
like,
million.
your math is a
Yeah,
little weird
sorry.
there. But so then you kind of like, okay, well, what did the first Avatar do? The first Avatar only did 70 million on this opening weekend domestic,
Right.
which is not a lot at all.
Not a ton, no.
No, even
And-
for the time, that's not a lot.
Yeah, and I think they're hoping here, that families and word of mouth is going to get out kind of like it did on the first one.
Yeah.
To where there is, a big subsequent push for obviously over the Christmas holiday week.
Yeah.
And New Year's week and everything like that, where people are off work and they're going to want to go see it with their families and everything.
Well, and that's kind of what I did with the first Avatar was I didn't see it opening weekend,
No,
Or
we
even
didn't
like
either.
the second
I
weekend
think
maybe.
we saw it maybe mid-January or something after it came out.
I want to say it was like early January. Yeah, like
Yeah.
maybe it's on New Year's Eve. I was there with some friends, and that's when we
Mhm.
saw it finally.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those films that like this just outside of just being an Avatar film, it doesn't really have like any other pull besides just do you want to go see blue aliens?
A really, big on spectacle.
It is,
movie.
yeah.
Now, for references, Thor: Love and Thunder is probably the best comparison if we're talking the 130 to 150 million projected.
Mhm.
It made 144 million domestically opening weekend,
Mhm.
and it landed at 760 million total.
Yeah.
Worldwide
And
But
or domestic.
it did not. That's worldwide.
Okay.
It did not have a China release.
and this one will.
Yeah.
This one has. It's already. It's already out.
It's already
in
out
China,
there. Yeah. The other thing is currently the projections do not have it set for basically beating out the highest of the year, which was Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. I was going to say Mountains of Madness.
Was it Doctor Strange or was it No
Doctor
Way
Strange.
Home?
No, No Way Home was 2021.
Oh wow. Woo. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Doctor Strange or No Way Home. Wow, too many words.
Too many words.
No Way Home was like 700 something million.
Okay.
But yeah, Doctor Strange I think was like 180 to 190 or something like that.
Yeah. It and Wakanda Forever, I think, were the two biggest opening weekends
Yeah,
domestically.
and
this
then
year.
obviously the highest grossing film of the year is Top Gun Maverick,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is like 1.1 billion or something like that now.
It's quite a bit.
but that
yeah.
one kind of did the same thing, well, a similar thing where its opening weekend wasn't
It wasn't
as
it wa-
wild,
yeah.
and then it built
And then
through
it
word
built.
of
it
mouth.
had a really good word of
Yeah.
mouth and a really long theatrical run. Right.
So
Yeah.
and it's possible that Cameron does plan on having this in theaters for a long time.
Yes.
To just try and rake in as much cash as possible, because they do need a substantial amount of money. Even at 250 million budget, they need basically like 800 million for it to be
you need
profitable.
more than that. So if you say 250 million budget,
Yeah,
double that to make it the total cost with marketing. So 500 million.
yeah, so a billion. Yeah,
Yes, they only get 50% of the domestic box office. So you need $1 billion domestically
yeah.
to break even. And once you go overseas, you don't talk 50% take from the box office. You start taking anywhere from 40 to 10%.
Yeah, it just
Mhm.
depends.
With I think China being one of the lowest actual return to the studio.
yeah,
Yeah.
It's just the numbers there. I mean, there's so many potential moviegoers there
yeah,
Yeah.
that you can make a lot of money. And Avatar is big in China. So
Yeah.
that I do think that is going to be a factor in. I think another factor that I've seen tossed around there's been a big talk of, well, you want to see it on the best screen possible. You want to go to IMAX, you want to see 3D. And when you go to a movie theater, not every theater within a movie theater can do those things, right?
correct.
So in terms of having that long theatrical run, if you want to see an IMAX and you couldn't get in the first couple weekends because they're full or whatever, you just don't
Yeah.
have the time, you're doing Christmas stuff, whatnot, well, then you're going to see it January, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to keep adding to those numbers.
to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also, those are more expensive tickets than just a normal
They are.
Yeah.
So whenever we saw this on Thursday night for the preview, we went with a couple friends that weren't big on IMAX, so we just watched it in just a normal theater.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I kind of, James Cameron, you got me, man. I kind of want to go see it again, just
Ooh,
in
look at-
IMAX.
Look at this endorsement
or
over here.
3D, just to see it again in the largest screen possible, so I can.
You're not
maybe
going to
appreciate
convince
some
me
of
to
the-
see this in 3D.
Well, yeah, but you
So-
don't like 3D, so go away.
When do we want to get into the 3D discussion?
Well,
and
we'll
the
talk about that
different
here in just a
formats?
second.
'Cause,
So,
I got a
yeah.
lot to say on this, but I want to
Yeah.
save it for the right point.
Okay, so let's hear some general thoughts of what we thought, how we liked it, did we not like it, blah 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 blah.
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think visually, obviously, it's incredible.
Stunning, yeah.
Yeah, stunning film. Story-wise, I think on paper, like on every level, it's probably better than the first Avatar. In that,
Mm-hmm.
I think so too.
I
I'd
think
agree.
the performances were better. I
Ooh,
think
I don't know about that.
I definitely think
Well,
so.
well, for Sam Worthington, 100%.
For Sam Worthington alone, he's an actor in this one, and in the other one, I think he was just like
He was a brick.
he was a brick. Yeah.
Cardboard cutout, yeah.
But yeah, you don't have like people like CCH Pounder in the original one, who was the matriarch.
Yeah,
Did
Yeah,
really good.
did
Like
really
you had
well.
some good stuff here. I thought Kate Winslet did really good.
She did.
I can't remember any of the characters' names in this one though.
I
I'll say
can't,
that.
yeah.
Like that's another concern that like versus the first one, maybe it's because I've seen it for 10 years or
Yeah.
more.
Well, I mean, you have Sigourney Weaver as Kiri.
Sigourney Weaver was great,
Well,
better than she was in the first
well,
one.
we
She's
will-
fine.
we will get to that.
We'll get to that, I guess. My overall thoughts. Let me finish. It was pretty good. I thought the performances were better or more consistent, at
Yeah.
least, than the first movie. I thought the writing was better
It was.
than the first movie.
Yeah.
The visuals were better. Music was fine. It was pretty good.
So sorry, I have to pull up my other notes. Here we go.
Yeah.
So the music was done by Simon Fraglin,
Oh, bless you.
and
No, I don't know that name.
So before, this is a name that I had never heard of before, so I had to
Yeah.
do some research. He was basically not an assistant. He worked under James Horner before James Horner passed away in 2015.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
And he worked on, so Simon worked on basically like every single thing that Horner had worked on over the past like 20 years.
Okay.
And his first thing that he composed, Simon, was Ice. Then there is Peppermint, and then Voyage of Time, which are
Ooh.
movies I'd never even heard of.
I
No.
thought those were
Yeah.
song names.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Simon is slated to compose every single Avatar film from now on.
Okay.
Okay.
And probably because he had a direct, connection with James Horner, and
Yeah.
and James Cameron and Horner have a very long-standing relationship.
Real long, yeah.
And it's unfortunate that he did pass away in 2015,
hmm
but that is kind of where it was. So the music was something.
It was Horner-esque.
It was very similar.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So continue. Sorry.
Anyways,
I
that was mostly
insert.
it. Just I thought it was pretty good overall. It did not blow me away necessarily. I didn't walk out of the theater like, oh my
I
gosh.
have to go see this
Yeah.
again.
Buy me another ticket, turn around, go back in there.
I saw it in 3D.
Yeah.
and-
So tell us about your 3D experience.
Well, so it was fine. This is probably
Ringing endorsement.
this is probably the best example of 3D to date.
Which, and
right?
I think the original Avatar was at the time like that
Yeah.
was the thing. Yeah.
This is it. This is what we trained for.
Yeah.
this
Well,
is-
Cameron puts a big emphasis on when it's filmed for 3D, and it's not once it hits post production.
Yeah.
They do something to it to make it 3D ready.
Well, so
Yeah,
a
'cause-
perfect example was in the trailers at the front. The Guardians of the Galaxy 3 trailer was post converted 3D,
yeah.
okay,
and you could tell
That it was
such a difference between it and then when Avatar 2 Wetwater Boogaloo actually started.
Yeah.
Of like the Underwater Boogaloo. I apologize.
come on, get it right.
Get it right.
Because the Guardians trailer just looked like a bunch of cardboard cutouts put in space. Like
Yeah.
it looked like they had just like rotoscoped around
And then
Yeah.
pulled them
person,
into
Yeah, and they
space.
pulled them,
stretched
and they
it
kind
out.
of like bulged the face a little, like it had
Yeah.
a spherical look to
Mhm.
it, but not like the actual features.
Mhm.
And so, when that trailer first hit and
You're
everybody
like,
put
oh,
the glasses on,
no.
I was like, oh yeah, this is why I hate post-converted 3D
3D,
movies.
yeah.
Okay. So then when Avatar actually started, it was like, oh wow. The problems still exist though with 3D for me. Like the edges of the screen is still a little bit blurry.
Little blurry, yeah.
It's not great, right? And the like James Cameron's use of it in this movie was great. This
There's
is
definitely, from a 2D perspective, there are definitely scenes where you could tell
Well,
they
that
would
was
be working
supposed to
with
be
3D.
3D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it definitely, the way he composed the shots and stuff was purposefully done and well done in 3D.
Mhm.
However, I still don't think it justifies 3D's existence anymore.
Yeah.
Like when I came out
It's
of
still a
it,
gimmick.
I did not come out of it going like, I believe again in 3D movies. I came out of it going like, that would probably still look really good in 2D.
It did
It
look
did.
good.
It
Yeah.
did.
And so another thing I wanted to talk about is the high frame rate,
Uh-huh.
right? Because if you don't know, Cameron filmed parts of this movie or to be displayed at 48 frames instead of 24, which
Yeah.
just means double the frame rate, which means smoother motion, right?
Yeah.
The Hobbit movies did this
To
when they
very
released.
poor
To
effect.
not,
Right.
well, yeah.
So this is the thing I was going to ask you about because I don't think any one of us saw the high frame rate versions because according to Cameron, every single underwater shot and every air shot was shot in high frame rate
Okay.
and should be super silky smooth. And for me, none of it in my theater played back in high frame rate. Not a single shot. Like the train scene you were talking about looked cool on mine because I think they did different shutter stuff,
Yeah.
but it was not like a high frame. I've seen The Hobbit in high frame rate.
Yeah.
I've seen 2 of the movies in
Well,
that.
but that doesn't, hold on now.
Yeah.
You're holding up The Hobbit as your example of what high frame rate should be like.
No,
And that's
I'm
not
saying
a good example.
I'm not saying that's what it should be. I'm saying it was obvious that The Hobbit was like
right.
48
It looks like a
frames.
soap
It looks like a soap
good.
opera.
That's
yeah.
not good.
But what I'm saying is, for me in 3D, some of the underwater scenes and some of the action scenes in 3D were very juddery. They needed the high frame rate to be smoother. So that's
So
I didn't experience. So Andrew, I know, also mentioned underwater scenes for
Mhm.
one or two when
Yeah.
we were discussing this. I didn't have an issue with any of the underwater sequences. The only moment, and when we get past the spoiler wall, we can get into the actual scene, but it involved the train, There's one part in the train where I went, "Ooh, that didn't." Something like either it like skipped, like there was a transition from standard 24 up to the 48 where it like went jerky
Mhm.
because like watching the trailer prior to of Spider-Verse
Yeah.
where they play with frame rate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
it's
way they
all on the
walk,
twos.
and you can feel it there, but it's a deliberate choice. This had some of that feel in it, but it felt like someone just they were supposed to cut it on 3 and they cut it on 5 or they cut it on 1. And so whatever the actual edit was supposed to be that covered the frame rate transition wasn't there.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, I was like, "Oh gosh, what was that?"
Weird.
So it's kind of weird too because back when The Hobbit came out, there were specific like titles on the
Yeah,
like whenever you're
it
buying
told
tickets,
you,
it
yeah.
tells you that
Yes.
this is a high frame rate
It's an
film.
HFR.
Yeah, where the Avatar ones, from what I saw, did not have any of that.
I
So
couldn't,
just
I couldn't find
assumed
anything. Yeah,
that it was just all part of it.
Well, so that was the thing that I went into because I was researching before we bought tickets of like, what's the best way to see this? And James Cameron was like, IMAX 3D high frame rate. He was like, that is the way to watch this.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So we only have one IMAX theater here. It's showing it in 3D. I assumed
That
they would be showing it in high frame rate.
But
right?
that's weird that they wouldn't.
Exactly.
yeah.
And I extremely sensitive to frame rates. I can tell you the difference between 24 and 25 sometimes.
Yep.
Like I know like,
Nerd.
well, I just edit all day,
I
every day
know,
for my
I know.
job. That's all I do is I like. So when we got in there, I was excited and it starts off and I was like, okay, so all this is just in 24. Interesting. I thought this opening,
Yeah.
this would have been
This
weird.
would be a good spot for
And
it.
so then
yeah.
as we keep going, I keep going like, well, maybe one of these action scenes will kick in to 48 frame and it never does. And I'm like, okay, weird. And so at that point, I made peace with the fact that
It just
Th-
wasn't going to be.
they're either not going to able to display it on this
Yeah.
projector or they're just
Uh-huh.
not going to. And so then I started looking into it afterwards. And that's when Cameron was like, every single underwater scene will be 48. Most
Yeah.
of the sky shots are 40. I was like, oh, well, that was definitely not my screening. you
Yeah.
know? And I start looking at some of the different screenings around here. None of them indicate
They tell you
HFR.
So maybe they just don't have it.
Well, they just don't tell you because apparently the real 3D one does do HFR.
Oh,
I think there's just certain projectors here that cannot do 3D and high frame rate at the
at
same
the same
time,
time.
which is ironic because high frame rate is better for 3D screenings.
Right.
It makes you less motion sick to see movement
Yeah,
really
your
smooth.
eyes aren't, your brain's not filling in all
Yeah.
these gaps.
Yeah.
It's the whole point of it in 3D IMAX was to have it in high frame rate, and I didn't get to see it in high frame rate, and I was very mad about it. 3D ran over, format ran over, but it's a weird rollout that like Cameron's one of those guys that's making these movies in a very niche specific format where he
Yeah.
said the best way to see it is IMAX 3D high
Because
frame
you want to
rate.
watch it in the intended format.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wanted to give it the most, I wanted to be able to weigh in and say, I think the 48 frame sections worked perfectly or they looked
or
like
it
a
was
soap opera and it was
terrible, yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I can't tell you that. All I can tell you is the use of 3D and the depth of field he did was great,
Mhm.
but it did not make me a believer in 3D movies. Or it didn't like change my perspective
Yeah,
that
outlook.
3D is more of a gimmick than an actual thing that needs to be utilized in more films.
Steven, what'd you think?
Well, 3D should never be utilized in general. I hate 3D. I'm an old man. I'm here to yell at clouds. It's not what I signed up for.
I'm
the
an old
movie.
man. I'm here to yell at cloud.
I liked it. I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I prior to going in, I had some objections about the idea that I was going to spend 3 hours for just fine.
Yeah.
And I think we definitely got more than just fine.
I do too.
I don't think that it was like a life-altering experience. It is better than the first, which that's pretty big praise already. I don't know if given when the first one hit and the kind of the cultural phenomenon
Yeah.
that it had, it's such a weird thing to talk about because the movie had no real cultural influence, but it was such a phenomenon while it existed.
Yeah.
I don't know if this one is going to be the same and make the kind of the juggernaut money that the first one did as a
Right.
result. But yeah, I think the story benefited by not just being a straight rip of every other story that we've seen before.
Yeah.
It's pieces of every other story that we've seen before.
Yeah.
It felt very predictable, but I don't think that that's a bad thing.
The only other thing I would say about like the story from a just general overview is that I think that it went on way too long. I feel like there's
Oh, yeah.
so
They could
many.
have cut 45
There's
minutes.
45 minutes in that
There's
movie
several
that could be
plot
gone.
beats that we'll get into after the spoiler wall that like kind of repeat themselves like 4 or 5 times where
Yeah.
you're like, hey, we got it. We're good. We don't need
yeah.
another scene
understand. We
reinforcing
understand.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where I feel like they could have spent that time on something else or, but overall.
Or just give me 45 minutes back.
Right. Yeah.
2 hour 30 movie is a lot more accessible than 3 hour
Absolutely.
15 or whatever,
Yeah.
11. I don't
Andrew?
know. I mean, yeah, like it was a really pretty movie.
I didn't know if there was anything else he had to say.
Not to. I mean, obviously, it's not really a spoiler, right? The trailer's all about water. It's all about the scene shift from the first one to the second one, going from forest to water was kind of a pleasant change.
It
Yeah.
was.
And I think the time spent developing what they did for mocap underwater.
Which it took them no less than 5 years to develop specific underwater technology to
Mhm.
have mocap actually underwater.
And, I
Yeah.
almost wonder if some of the R&D costs of that is what some people are rolling into a budget. Maybe.
Probably.
Possibly because that's one of the big reasons why it took so long
Mhm.
for this film to come out was because James Cameron, he loves water. We've already talked about this
He-
on our other Avatar episode.
He
And
loves water too much.
yeah, he loves water and he really wanted to up the game
Yeah.
for
Mhm.
mocap in actual water. They had a big 900,000 gallon tank that they filmed everything
All
in.
the water filming, yeah.
Well, I mean, I
Yeah.
think you see the difference.
It,
Like,
pays,
no,
it pays off.
it pays
yeah,
off
big time.
crazy.
like
yeah.
dividends worth of development for this of just like the payoff was very, very good.
Yeah,
Like, and
yeah.
it looks fantastic.
And I think just as a whole, the CGI, because most of the movie is CGI,
yeah.
it really kind of puts Marvel to shame in a lot of ways. And I don't know if some of that is an issue that Marvel has where they have to insert real characters
Mhm.
in CGI sets versus here it's still it's a person, in mocap acting, but they're a full CGI individual.
So
And I don't know if that helps blend everything together better.
Probably definitely.
well,
I
so
think so.
I think the big difference is that James Cameron is a historically hard director to work with because
Mhm.
he does not take one no for an answer and two he does not care about budget. And
Yeah.
he will take as much time as he needs to get the vision that he looks at. Where a lot of these Marvel films or I'll say modern CGI based films,
Yeah.
they're going to be much more on the budget of like, hey, we got to get this done.
It's a time
schedule,
budget.
we have
You
a
know, yeah,
release.
and you have the executive producers are like, hey, come on, we got to pick
We
this
got-
up.
This has to release on this date.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
Cameron's like, I'll release a sequel 13 years later so I can get it right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's the biggest difference with this because at this point, like I'm not going to say he's an auteur director because he makes very blockbuster level films.
Mhm.
Yeah.
He just makes them once every 10 years and they're always fantastic because he takes the time to do it.
Well,
Yeah.
also too, because of that time crunch, Marvel and other CGI, like there's only so many VFX studios out there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They only have so much time to work on these things. So if there's constant changes and time schedule to meet, time crunch, there are shortcuts have to be made somewhere.
Yeah, and Disney historically underpays, overworks their VFX teams.
Mhm.
Like
No.
like
Never.
objectively,
Can't
like
believe it.
I mean, it's tough for them, and like they've been in the hot seat for a couple years now for this.
Yeah.
just because of especially with all the D plus shows and everything that are coming out, like of them just
Yeah.
basically being taskmasters to just try and force these VFX companies to bid the lowest
Yeah.
while also giving
The,
like
the
really
best result they can. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
Andrew,
yeah. Okay,
other
so
thoughts?
I liked it.
Yeah?
I thought it was quite good.
Mhm.
Pretty much on the same level. I thought the music was actually quite poor.
Mhm.
There was a couple beats throughout the thing where it really felt like Simon took just James Horner's original Avatar
Mhm.
soundtrack and just repurposed it. And there wasn't anything new in here. I think that
Yeah.
really added to
There
the
needed
movie.
to be another level for the fact that we're in water versus forest.
Yeah, it just
We
all
needed a
felt
new
kind
twist.
of the same.
Yeah, we needed a new twist, and I think I agree. I feel like the music might actually have been
It's definitely the weakest
the
part of the whole
weakest
film.
part. Yeah,
The obviously the visuals were completely stunning, even
Yeah.
just in a normal theater with not a really good sound system and everything like that. Like it was great. Like
Yeah.
there's the final, I'll say, action set piece, which is basically the last quarter of the film,
Mhm.
is phenomenal
Yeah.
and probably worth the price of admission, honestly. Like,
And the price of getting there, the 2.5 hours it
oh
takes
yeah,
to
like
get there.
like there's a lot of good payoff
Yeah.
story wise
Oh,
for it,
yeah.
and I mean, clearly, like you can definitely tell that everyone did care about this production, and
Yeah.
they really put a lot into it. And that, then I'm not trying to discount Simon's musical thing. I just didn't think it was there for what the scale of this film was.
No,
Mhm.
it definitely felt like appropriate and it
Yeah,
worked, but
it was
nothing
fine.
stood out
Yeah,
as
it
like
wasn't jarringly bad.
No,
It's
yeah.
just there were
It-
moments that it could have elevated and it didn't.
Exactly, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was good. The story beats we knew exactly what was going to happen
Yeah.
every
Mhm.
time it was going to happen. That's fine. And but I think it actually kind of worked better for it because it did allow you to appreciate a lot of the major visual set pieces that he puts you through,
Mhm.
where like you can really appreciate a little bit more because you don't really need to have to think too hard on the story.
Right, yeah.
Because that's not where you're there for. You're there for an action film set on an alien world with stunning visuals.
Yeah.
And I thought it did a good job, and I liked it. I definitely think it's better than the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that point.
Yeah, like it does a really good job at world building and adding to the world of Pandora, which is not something that I was kind of expecting it to because I felt that going into it, I was like worried that it was going to just be the same thing.
Yeah.
And he definitely took a lot of it and molded it into something where I'm like, "Ooh, that's a pretty cool little, twist to the general formula," or like, "Ooh, I kinda like how he brought that character back." Those kinda things.
Yeah, yeah, I liked overall that stuff. I do feel like at points though, it does feel like the middle child movie where it's like there's some things that get
has
set
to,
up in
it has
this movie
to bridge.
It does.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
will not get paid off until future Avatar movies.
Now-
So compared to the first one where almost everything gets kind of introduced and wrapped up,
Mhm.
like
This one is much more open-ended.
Now,
Yeah.
I will say James Cameron in interviews has guaranteed, because 3 is already underway. It's happening.
Well, they
He
filmed
he's
them-
already filmed it,
Right.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's happening. There's no guarantee that we get a 4 or a 5
It's
based on box office returns, et cetera. It doesn't keep
Yeah.
making money, right?
And he did say that it can end at 3.
Right. He said 3 will have a satisfactory ending to the story.
Okay.
So if they don't make enough money, right, and 4 and 5 just aren't going to happen, then it's a closed loop, right?
And
Yeah.
I do like that I mean, James Cameron is a lot of things. I do like that he does have at least the forethought of like, hey, not everything I make is perfect.
Sure.
And if people don't like it, then I'm gonna at least make one more because that's my vision and that's where it needs to be. But if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like and him openly admitting that's important, I think.
Yeah.
Because he is a very upfront and forward thinking person.
That's a very
sometimes.
nice way to put it.
Yeah,
That's real. Yeah.
Because of the content of the podcast,
Generous.
I cannot
Say the words
say the words
required.
that I need to say.
The context limitation.
Could you say it in Navi?
But yeah, okay. So we're gonna wrap this up before the spoiler wall.
Yeah.
Would you recommend it? Would you not recommend it?
Would you go rewatch it?
Would you go rewatch it? Those kind of things.
So I would recommend it to anybody that's seen the first one.
Yeah.
I would say at least watch the first one.
Mhm.
I
Or-
will.
Well, I actually, because we're talking about a part 2.
Yeah.
Should you go watch this in theaters? I think that's a
Ooh.
better question.
It depends on your home setup, honestly. Like I think this is best experienced on a great screen with a great sound system.
Well,
Mhm.
we also don't know how long it's going to be before this hits like a streaming or
streaming
a
service.
DVD release,
Yeah.
and where or how accessible it will
They
be.
do
It'll
have
probably
it
be like-
on
It'd be
D+,
right? It should be.
Yeah, no, they do have the thing on D+ for it.
Oh,
but
it's,
they
it's
just
already
say
like a place,
it's
a
in
placeholder
theaters,
is
yeah.
there. So, and D+ you typically has at least a 30-day.
Oh, it's going to be
It's gonna be like
I
Yeah,
feel like they're
longer.
going to give us at least 90 days.
I wouldn't
in
be surprised if they
theater.
waited till next summer to
Yeah.
put this on D+.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
depend if it keeps making money. There's
'Cause
no reason to.
In my
to put
head,
it
they're
out
going to
there.
do a theatrical run through January, maybe to the end of January.
and they want to re-release it
and
again,
then get
like in
90
March.
days after that before they do like a DVD release, probably 30 days after that, then it'll
okay.
hit D+.
Yeah.
That would be like
So
my
summer would probably be the earliest time that you
Yeah.
could see this in theaters.
In
Or-
theory.
or,
No,
well,
it's
on
home.
stream. Sorry.
Streaming.
Yeah.
So do you think you need to go see this in theaters?
I mean, again, if you don't have a good setup at home, like I've got a subwoofer the size of a Volkswagen. I have a Dolby Atmos surround sound system and a 65-inch 4K TV. I'll watch it again at home, no sweat.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, I think seeing it in theaters is the way to go. I don't think you have to see it in 3D. I think if you like 3D movies and you can tolerate it and you don't get headaches from 3D or motion sickness, then it's definitely a really good excuse to go see a 3D movie, because the way Cameron uses it is phenomenal. Better than anybody else making 3D movies. This is the best 3D movie you will have ever seen. Having said that, I think you're perfecly fine seeing it in 2D. Yep. There was nothing in the 3D that like made me go like,
oh, you have to see
this is the only way to experience this. It was more like every now and then, like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And it was honestly like the small stuff would stand out more. Like there would be like
The
a
nuance.
close-up shot of somebody, and you could see that like some strands of hair are closer than further away. Instead of like the big action scenes were like fine.
Oh, the flipper reaches out and touches you in the stands.
Yeah. So I would say it's worth seeing in theaters.
Yeah.
Yes. Steven?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've seen the first movie and you liked it, or you at least enjoyed the experience of it, because again, the big selling point of this is the spectacle. I think, I would recommend it. I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm intrigued to see where Avatar goes from here, right?
Yeah.
And I would say, again, don't see movies in 3D. It's terrible. It's bad for your health. But the bigger screen you can find, probably the better. We saw this on just a normal 2D screen. I would not mind seeing this in IMAX if I could, like, in a few weeks block out some time.
Yeah.
I feel like that might be kind of fun just for as big a screen as I can. I don't have
with as loud of a sound system. That
right.
you
Yeah,
can
I
get.
don't have the 65-inch 4K TV, or
He doesn't even have a sound bar.
I don't have a subwoofer.
Yeah.
You're just trying to make Ryan angry. You're trying to raise his blood pressure.
No, I feel sad. Like, I know there's starving kids in Arkansas.
He's
people that don't have sound systems.
He's
like
just beaten
but
to death now.
No.
Yeah, I think once this hits streaming, I may put it on again fairly soon. I think for like Avatar, it's not something you have to, because the story is just so well known.
Yeah.
You don't have to rewatch it every year.
No.
For this, the story is at least different enough that if you were watching this every year, every 2 years, I feel like there is enough value in it to be
And you could probably pull some more out of it too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think so.
Yeah. So I'm kind of on the same thing. Like I probably sometime in January, I'll probably look to see if I can, carve out an afternoon to go see this in theaters again, preferably on like an IMAX or a real 3D screen or whatever, just to experience it.
Yeah.
And because I don't mind 3D. It's not one of my primary choices, but, if it's there, and especially because it's Avatar and I know he shot it in with 3D cameras, that's kind of where, my mind kind of goes with it. And, if you like the first one, this is obviously the next obvious choice. But I definitely think that if you're going to go see a film that is meant to be a spectacle, go watch it on the biggest screen possible that you possibly can.
Definitely.
Yeah.
It's absolutely worth the price of admission, just wholesale. I mean, like it's an entertaining film. It has a lot of good beats to it. The visuals are obviously stunning.
Yeah.
And it's totally worth it, I think.
All right, everyone. This is your spoiler wall. If you haven't seen this in theaters yet and you don't want to be spoiled, stop.
Stop what you're doing. Go watch the movie.
You don't have to keep it playing. And you do have to keep it playing. Listen to us shill for just another few minutes.
Yes.
But then stop. And listen to the shill first, though, because if you like what you've heard so far, we've got a lot of great other episodes out there.
If you like this episode, boy, have I got a deal for you. We got lots more.
Free content on your
just
favorite
exists.
podcast providers. Yeah. You can check out us talking about, recent stuff like Andor, which was honestly a phenomenal Star Wars show.
Yeah,
It was.
We loved it.
We also have some classics like Alien and Blade Runner.
Yeah, we even have our review of the first Avatar. That was a fun episode.
That was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Almost maybe more fun than the movie, question mark?
Maybe? I don't know.
Probably.
It probably was.
And you can find all that at spoilersintendedpodcast.com, where there's links to also our Discord.
We love to have chats about kind of basically whatever. We have channels about what we're listening to, what games we're playing, other shows that we're watching that we're probably never going to review. You never know.
Yeah. It's a wild
if
time.
people want to talk about it in there, it might become a review. You just don't know.
Yep.
Speaking of reviews, if you listen to us on any podcast provider, please leave us a review. We would love that.
Absolutely.
Particularly iTunes.
Doesn't have to
great.
be. Whatever you listen to, we'll take it.
Yeah.
We won't
But if
say
you have
no.
a friend that listens on iTunes, like strong arm them a little bit into giving us a
And
review.
twist that wrist a little.
Yeah.
And we're back. This is the spoiler wall. If you have not seen Avatar 2 Underwater Boogaloo, Way of Water, you probably
Jump back in the water and swim away.
Yeah.
well, and you don't want spoilers. If you want spoilers,
Hey,
stay,
knock yourself
Stick
out.
around.
whatever,
Have fun
do
with
whatever
it.
floats
Yeah.
your boat. But yeah, here we are. We have spoilers. We're going to jump right into it, into the spectacle, which is arguably the most important part about an Avatar film at this point.
Definitely. No,
Yeah.
not a question at all. I
Well,
think.
Steven spoke up. It's all him.
Oh, okay. Just
Got him.
throw it on me. All right. This film looks great.
It does.
Honestly, and I think the move away from the forest
Mhm.
to the water. I mean, obviously it's in the title, right? No duh. We're gonna.
Yeah.
If you watch this movie, you're like, where's the forest? I don't know what to tell you. You know.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's a great transition, and it lets us explore more of the world.
Yep.
Right. The world building in this movie, I think, is phenomenal
Yeah.
and really amps up how much more I'm interested in seeing more Avatar films. I mean, prior to us being like, yeah, we're going to review this, I was like, do I have to see this movie? You know?
Yeah.
But all these shots of the water, kind of the tropical reef island that they're on,
Yeah.
the whales, our new creatures that we get introduced to, you know, all of our underwater creatures, everything looks great.
Mhm.
And I think I've heard in the past, right, you know, hair, fur are really difficult to do in CGI. Water is another one that's up there.
Well, just because
Just the fluid dynamics.
yeah,
of
fluid
it.
dynamics are very, very hard to replicate.
Right,
Because
which is-
everyone knows how water is supposed to look and feel.
Right, which is why Cameron was like, we're not doing the water in CGI. You're getting a 900,000 gallon tank. You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So fun fact about this. So Kate Winslet is one of the main characters in the show
Yeah.
or film.
Movie.
Excuse me. And she.
Who is she? What part does she play?
I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah, he's got it.
Okay.
So she broke the crew the crew on
Her character
on
name was
set.
Ronal.
yeah. So
Who's
she's
that?
She was the female matriarch of the water.
I know who it is. I'm just trying to get y'all
Yeah.
to say it.
Um,
You're right. No, you got
But
it.
yeah, okay. So she broke the on-set record and the film record for holding your breath as a free diver.
Wow.
For more than 7 minutes.
Holy cow.
The last
Kate
standing,
Winslet did this?
yeah, the last standing record was Tom Cruise for
Yep.
Rogue Nation
Course.
2015.
Of course it was.
Yeah,
course
so
it
now he's
was.
going to see this. He's like, I'm
Oh,
going to
that's
break
not-
the world record.
We're not standing for
So
this.
yeah, the one after this next Mission Impossible will all be set underwater.
Underwater. He's got to be on like a sinking sub.
Yeah.
But so like the big tank that they had it in, 900,000 gallons to film their mocap stuff, right? Which is already insane just to think about.
My brain can't even process. Like, is that big?
It's very big.
That sounds like a
I mean,
lot.
what- I'm gonna look up some quick stats
Yeah,
on
that's
that.
fine.
Keep going.
So the cool thing is, they're on their busiest day.
Mhm.
They had 26 people in the water, all like people that were in scuba gear, everything like this. And the biggest part about this film was, obviously the mocap technology and everything to do it. The problem was they couldn't film the actors with breathing apparatuses. So they every single actor had to be trained to be a free diver.
Wow. They couldn't
Wait,
even
okay.
run like a little straw or like a hose to the
because
corner
the
of
air
their mouth?
bubbles cause problems with
All
the
right.
mocap.
I looked up some
Wow.
stats, and I think it makes this sound not as cool as we think it is. So, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, which is, at least visually something we're used to seeing, is 50 meters long by 25 meters wide and 2 meters deep.
Okay.
So, volume-wise, that's 660,000 gallons.
Okay.
So, it's another third. Well, I guess from that perspective, it's
Third-ish.
another 50% of
Yeah,
an Olympic
yeah.
swimming pool, and it's probably all depth, right?
Yeah. Well, and it's probably like a big round, like kind of like the thing that astronauts train.
The
in.
diving
Yeah.
pools, yeah. Because they got to have, and there's at least one scene in the movie where I cannot remember any of the kid characters' names. One of the kids dives pretty deep down chasing
Mhm.
the shell.
And that's like actually, I mean, like it's so weird because it's all CGI at the end of the day, but it's all mocapped, and they probably did go down that far.
well, because they have the shot of him down and he looks up at the shadow of the girl
Mhm.
Yeah.
above him. And I imagine that bit is actually in the pool. So the pool's probably 10 meters deep.
It's probably pretty deep.
It's probably pretty
Probably,
deep.
yeah.
But obviously they work within the confines of it for other stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to read an excerpt here of just kind of some of the underwater stuff, right?
Okay.
So over an 18-month performance capture shoot that began in 2017.
That's pretty long.
It is long. Kirk Crack's team, actors, and crew logged more than 250,000 free dives.
Dang.
Oh, wow.
At its busiest, the tank had 26 people underwater on breath hold. That's a weird sentence. They were holding their breath with motorized vehicles in the water, standing in for Pandorian sea creatures, zooming around into space. One
Okay.
of Crack's proudest moments was watching Sigourney Weaver, who was 69 years old at the time. And when she began freediving training, she could outlast the stunt divers.
Wow.
Got 'em.
And so there was, I mean, like, apparently, like, she just, like, took right to this.
She was like,
Which-
I was Ripley. I think I can hold my
can
breath.
hold my breath. But that fits, right, with her character
With Kiri,
underwater when
yeah.
she's doing like the whole like dancing with the fishes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and those, like, a lot of those scenes are pretty long.
Yeah.
Like, and you have to imagine, like, that's not like she just gets in the water and they're immediately filming. Like, there's times where you just have to hold your breath.
well, you
and
gotta
just-
you gotta get in. You know, for her, she's on the sea floor, quote unquote, when she's doing that.
Mhm.
She has to get down to that point
Mhm.
before the scene starts. And you're probably down to that point. You get settled. You figure out, well, I got to look this way. This is my cue. All right, I'm oriented right. And then they're doing, however, they're signaling, you know, to start filming
Yeah.
underwater. If it's they're
Yeah.
waving a hand or whatever. And then you have to do the actual scene. And then you might, depending if you can hold your breath long enough, they might just do like, let's do
Two
two
takes,
shots
yeah.
before you go back up, or they hit you. You know, a diver comes in and hits you with a
Well, I was going to say, I
mask
wonder if
and-
they hit him with a mask real quick and then
They
take
may,
it away.
yeah, it's probably-
So for safety purposes, any of these kind of underwater shoots, there's always going to be more people in the water than just your actors, your filmers, your
Yeah,
director.
because you want to make sure that your actors that you're paying millions of dollars
Right.
don't die.
Well, and it's not just for them too. I mean, even
It's
the,
even for the crew.
yeah. What if someone underwater with a camera has God forbid, some kind of medical emergency?
Yeah.
You can't just be like, Sigourney Weaver, get him to the surface. It doesn't work that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be more people under there with tanks, and they're getting air
Well-
as kind of watching the scene and make sure everything is okay. And they can always swim in and give
Mhm.
an actor an extra shot of air,
Yeah.
and then you keep doing. So for all we know, Sigourney got down there and did multiple takes of this scene
Yeah.
before you go back up, which in and of itself, that's already kind of like an endurance marathon like test. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, so we have Sigourney Weaver, which she's fantastic. Then swimming, much less free diving without a breathing apparatus or scuba diving tanks, didn't come intuitively at first for actor Bailey Bass, who plays Soraya, a Mexican teen who calls the ocean her home. So she's like the love interest,
the daughter
for-
of-
Yeah.
yeah.
She's the daughter of the chief.
Yeah, and but for 5 months, Bass trained, then 13, trained alongside her co-stars to breathe and hold her breath for several minutes at a time, giving her characters comfort in the water.
Mhm.
She also won underwater sea certification or scuba certification for basically because she ended up loving it.
Right. Yeah. Well, at some point, you spend so much time doing this, it becomes the absolute worst thing ever. You dread it, or you're just like, man, do I want to do this? You become Tom Cruise. Like, man, do I want to
Yeah.
learn how to just freebase because it's cool?
Yeah.
I finally feel alive.
The average length of a dive for performance capture was 4 minutes.
That's a long time underwater.
That's
seems
a
like a
long
lot.
time
Like
underwater.
I just assumed from the outset, like watching it and how they would have filmed it, is that they would like go down, do like 2 or 3 quick takes, have the scuba air right
Yeah.
there, and then they would just splice those takes together
Mhm.
into the final thing
Well-
instead of trying to get it all in one big shot a lot of
And you have
times.
to remember too that the communication underwater is worse, right? They can't just
Yeah.
like put a headset on them. So at some point, they may do 3 takes of the scene, and maybe like camera's like, this isn't working. Go back up. We're gonna talk about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, if you're gonna have a discussion, you got to come back up.
Well, because
Mhm.
and there's no real way to communicate down there besides sign language, which they actually did develop an entire different sign language for the Na'vi in
Mhm.
this film, so they could actually communicate underwater.
So can
That's
I
crazy.
say, from a spectacle perspective, right? The first Avatar, they're like, we need a font for subtitles. Let's use Papyrus. And I heard prior to seeing this, oh, well, they developed their own font. And I was like, this just looks like Papyrus Light.
It did.
They
like
took Papyrus and they tweaked it
Just a
a
little
little
bit.
bit, yeah. For those that are uninitiated, Papyrus is a not a good font.
It's a meme
It's a
font.
It's a
Meme
meme
font,
font,
yeah.
That and
just from the
Comic
graphic
Sans.
design world. Oh yeah, but yeah, spectacle. We're still technically on
We're,
that.
we don't.
I was gonna say,
well,
let's
we
get back on track here.
let's
We
get
got
a-
a lot of.
I mean, the underwater
cool.
scenes
Yeah.
and what these people are doing is a spectacle in and of itself, right? When you start backing out, and like Andrew mentioned, they have motorized vehicles running around under here to simulate the animal, so that the actors have something to key on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that kind of managing that type of production in and of itself is just incredible.
It's pretty wild, honestly.
Yeah,
of
I mean-
just how involved.
I would love to see some behind the scenes.
Oh, I'm
of
sure
that
we're gonna get it.
Surely.
Yeah, there's no
Oh,
way
yeah.
he didn't do 13 years of production to not have
To
a
just totally
behind-the-scenes
ignore it, be like
documentary.
show off,
Oh,
like
yeah.
look how cool I am. Yeah.
Exactly.
But so in terms of actual spectacle, right? So our final big fight scene,
Yeah,
I thought was actually pretty great
I think it's phenomenal.
because there's a lot of different groups. Like the camera's jumping around,
Yeah,
but you
Yeah.
always have a great idea of where everyone is moving towards, like what their
it
goal
was
is.
blocked impeccably.
Oh, and like them.
It
Go ahead,
reminded
Ryan.
me of like the first Avatar, where when you get to the end of it, you realize, oh man, James Cameron is really good at framing and executing
Oh,
action
yeah.
scenes.
Mhm.
And so like we got to the end of this one, and I was like, here he is again.
Yeah.
You're just like,
Yeah.
man, like the also spectacle wise, shout out to like all of his mech designs of like the crab.
the little
robots
crab
crab
walk,
and,
like,
yeah.
so good.
And when they tuck in underwater and turn into a sub, I was
Yeah.
like, yes. There was so many things like that that all hit you at once, where it's like it's the framing, it's the blocking, and then it's just the art direction and the design of
Mhm.
the mechs or the ships or
Yeah.
the Navi creatures or the fish.
Well, even
all of
just-
it, like
Even his big like hydroplane ship.
yeah, that
Oh,
thing
that
was
was
man,
cool.
it's so
Yeah.
cool.
And like the concept too, when they're like, run it up, get it up to fly
Flight,
level,
yeah.
bring us back down,
Yeah.
full stop. The way it moved and the way it operated was just, that was a cool machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like there was a lot of moving parts in that action scene, but it never got confusing. He
Yeah.
kept everything
Yeah.
very, like you're saying, like you were never confused about where someone was. There was one moment where the son disappears for like 30 minutes
Yeah.
and then he saves the day. And I was like, what were you doing?
Yeah, I was curious.
This
like,
whole
where
time.
were you this whole
That's
time?
more of a plot issue.
I know, but,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
speaking of like where people are, like the other thing that bugged me was like all the other water people just vamped
Oh,
after
yeah.
the explosion.
Like, we did our
And I was
job.
like,
Get out of here.
Where'd
Yeah.
they go? Because then everybody's in trouble, and I'm like, it's just the Jake
Just the
Sully
family.
family, and I'm like,
We're still on plot.
where'd
though.
all those other people go?
Still on
Like,
plot. Still on plot.
Yeah, but the framing of it and the way he executes his action is incredible. James Cameron
Mhm.
knows what he's doing on that level
Yeah.
for sure.
Even on the intimate like one-on-one fight at the end with Quaritch,
Quaritch, yeah.
Quaritch.
Porch.
Quaritch and Jake Sully. I mean, like it's just like he really does a great job of really just showing you the different scale of the Avatar or the Navi
Oh, the
compared
size,
to
the size
normal
differences.
people.
Anytime there's a frame where it's an avatar or a Navi
Yeah.
going after a human, you're just like, man, these guys are huge.
So the really cool part is in the first film, you don't really get to see the Navi like be this overpowering kind of force.
You get
to
small
humans.
pieces of it, but never really.
Like when Natiri shoots him with the arrows at the
they're
end, you see how
huge.
huge they are.
Yeah, well, I mean, like these things are just like the cruise missiles going through these like
Yeah.
Pelican kind of helicopters.
Well,
and,
for me, in the first movie, the big moment was when they jump into the back of the big ship,
yeah,
the big shuttle,
Oh yeah,
and he's like swinging and just like knocking him over like crazy.
yeah.
And you're like, man, like this dude's head's like on the roof of a cargo shuttle,
Yeah.
basically.
all
and
the
he's
soldiers
just-
look like first graders.
Yeah.
but you get to see Natiri go just complete like primal rage.
Oh yeah.
It's
And-
it's like watching Adam Sandler and Billy Madison get out and start playing dodgeball with the little kids.
I mean, it really is because like her scene at the end of this film of her just going absolute bonkers.
She goes full Rambo.
yeah.
man.
I mean, she just lost her kid. It makes sense.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And her like shooting people with the arrow and then pulling it out and shooting it through the same guy
Yeah.
into the other guy. It's like, oh,
Ooh.
Can I just say, I don't know that it's really special. I think some of it is, but the moment in that when she is like full feral and
yeah.
Spider looks around the corner and he's like, I don't think I'm gonna go out there.
Yeah.
well, I mean, there's no way that he wasn't going to die at that
Yeah,
point.
no,
Like,
it's one of those like I'm gonna wait
He's
until somebody else shows up.
yeah, because this is more plot, but like it's such a tragedy of circumstances, that kind of led up to this point of, a lot of people messed up in her family and
Mhm.
Spider and all this other kind of stuff to
Yeah.
have her kid die.
Sure.
And it's, at that point, it's, obviously the emotional climax of the film. And you're, you just watch a mother just completely just decimate
Rage
basically
out.
the entire crew by
Yeah.
herself. I mean, like Jake helps a little bit.
He's not in terms of the body count, he's not that helpful.
No,
But watching the two of them go back and forth was
it
pretty
was,
satisfying.
it was pretty
Yeah.
well because they do it twice too. Because the initial one where they're in the forest, which
Yeah.
and the obviously Forest Avatar Pandora still looks fantastic.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
But watching them basically go back and forth and take out an entire team of Marines that are also in Avatar bodies was fantastic.
Where it's just like, hey,
Yeah.
we have like, are you a Marine in an Avatar body? That's nice. We have actually like lived this now for
Yeah.
a decade or whatever.
Mhm.
When she grew up in Avatar, I mean, she's a
A
Na'vi.
Na'vi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's been a Navi, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's I mean, the film is just absolutely stunning, but what really got me was, we finally got to see a little bit more of outer space kind of stuff. I really
Oh,
liked
the landing, the beachhead invasion
Oh,
kind
man.
of thing. Oh,
Yeah,
that was really well done.
you get to see the scale of how large these ships are because
Yeah.
and then obviously the destruction of whenever it's coming down
Mm-hmm.
and landing on the planet of just how scorched earth it really is.
Yeah.
Because you don't think about it from the scale of like you have to stop this multi-billion ton machine from crashing into a planet. So
Right.
you have to have the thrust equal to that.
yeah.
And whenever you see this and you're just like, yeah, this is pretty much what happens.
Yeah.
It was just absolutely fascinating.
I do
Yeah.
think the mocap and the animation of the whale-like creatures
Uh-huh.
was really good. Even all the water creatures, they were really like fluid. It looked like they put mocap dots on whales and actually
Yeah.
fish.
But like the design of all of the aquatic animals, right? There's a lot there that I felt was identifiable
Mhm.
in terms of, well, this is
An
you know,
analog
an
to
analog to a fish or like some
A
of the,
jellyfish
the
or-
underwater
yeah.
dinosaurs,
Yeah.
Mhm.
But at the same time, they all looked like cohesive design. I think that's the big thing for a lot of this movie for Cameron is the mechanical objects all looked like one cohesive design. Like a culture came up with these designs.
Yeah.
And then the species of fish and everything, they all look like a cohesive design. Okay, this is all from the same biome.
So the thing, and I like this may be a super hot take, but up until
Buckle up.
up until like the Avatar film and now this one,
Mhm.
the gone and gold standard for I'll say like art direction world building, not including anything about story or anything like that, was basically Lucasfilm with Star Wars, particularly the
Sure.
prequels, because his art direction for the prequels for like
Okay, that's
for
fair.
like
yeah.
visual design was stunning, right?
Mhm.
I think both avatars are kind of a masterclass of true art direction of creating something completely different.
Well, this to me felt a lot like seeing Dune
Yeah.
Part 1
Yeah.
because again, there everything feels connected, it makes sense, et cetera, and I love the design of the machines, right?
Yeah.
It feels purposeful and everything like
Yes.
Everything
makes
has-
sense and
yeah.
works.
And
Yeah.
this is the same kind of levels of I can see how like the fish that like the flying fish, I can
Mhm.
see where like the evolution of this works because again, we have analogs here on Earth. Like
Yeah.
it makes sense to us to see a fish behave this way.
So, fun fact about that: a lot of the creatures in the underwater, or like in the ocean realm, were actually initially introduced in the flight through Pandora in Disney,
Oh, okay, that's cool.
and then they brought those into the film because they liked them so much.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do a great job with something, don't throw it out. Don't
Yeah.
like start over. Just grab it and go. And also for I haven't been to Disney World in forever, but for people who have gone through that ride and that park, if they see that on the screen, then it's an Easter egg for them, right? So
Yeah.
it's a greater connection to it. And now if you go to the park now and you've seen it, then there's a greater connection that they're just making use of, right? It's
Yep.
free money basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So let's move on to performance.
Yeah. Let's do it.
We had Sam Worthington.
He's
Okay.
back and he's better than the first one.
He,
Okay.
he definitely was better than the first
Can
one.
I soapbox for a second?
Go ahead?
So when we talked about Avatar 1
Mhm.
and Sam Worthington's performance in particular, we talked about how he had a difficulty with the American accent that
Yeah.
he had to do. that even speaking Na'vi was easier for him because it was not, trying to ignore, years and years of habit, et cetera,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In Avatar 2, we get an Aussie character who's a bad guy, but I mean, he has, we prove these accents still exist in the universe. Why could Sam not just be, why could Jake Sully not just be Australian to begin with, and we remove that burden from
Because
this guy?
you need to have the connection with being a Marine.
But I mean, that doesn't
I
necessarily
mean, we're
mean
100 years
anything.
in the future.
Yeah,
Maybe Marines in the future are
we're
Australians.
traveling space. This could be the Marines from Halo kind of thing.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
But
I think James Cameron in the first one specifically, because he said he wanted to cast an unknown. He wanted a dude that you could feel like you could have a beer with. And
Well,
in his mind, that is everyday boy who went in the Marines. That is his
Marine
yeah.
jarhead.
and that's
Yeah.
and that's where it initially was. But clearly, he rose above that initial kind of thing because he definitely is a much more of a
Oh, he's way better in this.
way better.
Well, I think number one, he has a better script to work with, but just his delivery was better across the board.
100%.
Like his emotional scenes were more believable and heartfelt. Than there's so many times in the first one where it feels like he's reading a line.
So
Yeah.
You know.
I'm going to get real speculative with this, right? I
Yeah.
looked it up. He got married in 2014, has 3 kids.
Okay.
So I bet the subject matter of this film
is much more hits
way
home.
easier now for him to relate to because it is
Probably, yeah.
protecting his family. The kid, the interaction between him and his 2 sons when they have the fight with the native tribe.
Yeah.
And he's like after
How do they look?
He scolds the first son, right? You go back and apologize to him. He walks off and he turns to the other and is like, how do they look? Worse than us. That's right. That's
Yeah,
my boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those kind of interactions really did hit home.
They're much, much better chemistry.
Yeah. The one thing that kind of was unfortunate though was Zoe Saldana didn't really have a lot of screen time at all.
She didn't.
Yeah, that was sad.
It felt that she was either relegated to just being, and this is more of a plot thing, but it felt she was relegated to being just the character that always tried to disagree and cause tension with Jake. Which is not even really, I mean, he is the main character, but he's not really the main character in this film.
But I feel like we got a lot more with her in the first movie to see her arc and that. Whereas this
That is
one,
true.
So a perfect example though is when she does get the chance to act, when she's mourning the loss of her son and when she's going feral at the end.
Yeah,
she nails it.
Oh yeah,
she does fantastic.
So
but she's just not given, like you
she's
said,
not
as
given
many.
a lot.
Yeah.
that to me is probably the thing that stood out the most, right? From Avatar 1 with the destruction of the tree. And she does that almost alien
That
whale.
Yeah.
And then again with her son's death here, because not only does it hit home of the tragedy and the emotion here, it still feels a little alien and a little I don't want to constantly use this term, but almost feral and kind of going into the cat people idea. I think she hits that perfectly. And then also again in the big fight when she's just totally berserking out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other one that I really have to give shout out to, which he was the standout, Stephen Lang. He
Man,
nails
he's
it.
so good.
Yeah.
He nails being the bad guy.
Well, and he, to me, did a better job in this movie than the first one, even though we never actually see him on screen as a person, except for in the flashback video or the message.
Yeah.
Was because I feel like in the first movie, again, he was kind of a cartoon villain. And I think the one complaint, too, about this movie is that, the bullies are cartoonishly bullies. The boys. The humans are just cartoonishly we're just here to ruin your world. That's our whole thing. We're going to settle here now and kill your whales. We killed all ours. Here we go. It's a little on the nose on that level. But him, in terms of his performance, I think he gave more nuance in this movie than the last one.
Especially his interaction with Spider.
Yeah.
Which whenever I see a white kid with dreads, I immediately, my brain just turns off and I'm like, ooh, I don't know about this. He did okay. He did a fine job.
Spider was fine. He could
did
have
better than I expected.
Easily been annoying.
Yes.
He could have very easily been the worst character in this movie.
And you could definitely tell that him and the kids had a really good interaction, and you could definitely tell that they had spent a lot of time together in universe to have this camaraderie and everything like that.
So I really liked Sigourney Weaver in this one. It sounds like you guys didn't, maybe?
Well, it's not that I didn't like her, because she's a fantastic actress, right?
Yeah.
We've talked about this multiple times on multiple episodes.
Sure.
It's really the fact that it's a 70-year-old Sigourney Weaver
Being a
in a
13-year-old kid
body.
or whatever.
I thought she sounded great as a kid.
It was just so
I was
off-putting every single
surprised.
time.
I was impressed, right?
Yeah.
Because it was not just we brought in Sigourney Weaver to be Sigourney Weaver's voice. She was actually voice acting, where she was a
Yeah.
younger version.
It was. And like it's one of those things where it was fine. It didn't like take away, but it was like kind of sticker shock at the beginning where I'm like, ooh,
a little bit, yeah.
that's just Sigourney Weaver just talking in a 13-year-old body.
It took me 2 lines to realize I was like, oh, hold up. That is Sigourney Weaver.
Yeah.
The other thing for me was like in the first Avatar, Sigourney Weaver, a lot of her dialogue felt stilted.
It does.
And again, I had that moment of
It's
like,
just what she's given.
you guys didn't have a better take of that? You know, like that was my
Yeah.
reaction rewatching that one. This one, I thought all of her lines were delivered great. Like,
Well, and also she had a lot of kind of nonverbal acting, like the whole underwater
Oh,
scenes.
yeah.
And I thought that, like, they didn't have to say anything. You didn't have to be like, and in this moment, she connects with what. No, we
Right.
got it. Like, we
Yeah.
understood
Yeah.
exactly what's happening.
So, fun thing, whenever Sigourney Weaver saw Kiri's design initially,
mhm.
Right.
she didn't like it because it looked too pretty and neat.
Uh-huh.
So she basically made them redesign it to where she had kind of like the straggled
The
hair,
mussy hair. Yeah.
and just a little bit more of like a teenage girl whimsical kind of feeling. She reminds me a lot of Nori from Rings of Power.
Oh, I was going to throw out like a Luna
Mm.
Lovegood.
Yeah, Luna
almost.
Lovegood, yeah. And it definitely really carries over too, because I loved Kiri's design as a
Mhm.
character, like just because she's different than basically everyone else, which that's kind of the whole point, right?
Right. Yeah. She is not just, she's kind of the outcast of the outcast. Like everyone in this film is kind of an outcast
Yeah.
for different
But
reasons.
she's the weird outcast.
She's the extra step level where my weirdness is actually maybe like harming me.
Yeah.
And we don't
Right.
understand why.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't like, and clearly they're going to get into that probably
Yeah.
in subsequent films, or definitely the third one, because like she was probably one of the more interesting characters of the kids.
Well, we'll get into it in plot because I think they
Yeah.
did a good job with honestly all the kids in terms
I
of
thought they
giving
did
them
too.
a good, and again, like we're talking pretty well about these performances, having good dialogue, having a good understanding of like, well, these characters are doing meaningful things on screen. That's going to help them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just by default. And I think they did that it paid off.
Well,
Yeah.
just making it about a family dynamic
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
easily like gives you a easier touchstone than the first Avatar for like the
does.
emotional stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say the other 2 people I want to make sure we shout out was Kate Winslet as Renal and Cliff Curtis as Tanawari, the 2
Yeah.
matriarch and patriarch of the Water Clan. I didn't go into it knowing who either of those were. Like
Uh-huh.
I didn't
Me
know that.
either.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that was Kate Winslet. I didn't know that was Cliff Curtis.
Yeah.
2 actors I love. And so when we got to the end, I was like, man, they did really good. Like
Yeah.
there was a lot of nuance in their performance, and like
Especially Cliff Curtis.
like his face, like you can just see the expressions that like he like makes
Mhm.
every now and then. And then with her, like I thought Kate Winslet did great. And then we got to the end and I saw the credits like, oh my gosh, that was Kate Winslet.
Yeah. Yeah,
I thought they did great. But the kids too did really good. Because again, children in movies have that very easy ability to just be like
Really
annoying
grating.
or great. And
Yeah.
especially the youngest one,
Took.
Took. I thought she was great. Like,
Yeah.
So I thought her performance was good. I
Mhm.
think the plot did her a disservice in that
Sure.
towards the end of the
Agreed.
movie, she was just baggage.
she even comments on it, I'm tied up again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like it was like you're kind of being hosed by the plot right now, but she was still good. Like that line still got a laugh because it is something a kid would just be like, "Oh, I'm here again," kind
Yeah,
of thing.
But we'll get into all that when
Yeah,
we get
yeah.
to plot.
So yeah, let's move into score. I think this one will probably be pretty short.
This is real short.
We've already kind of talked about it. James Horner clearly, and unfortunately passed away in 2015. He was slated to
Mhm.
compose this
Mhm.
film, and whatever happened in the production of it. And I don't think that the music was really there.
So let me read this one note that I put down
Yeah.
here. Soundtrack reminded me of a field trip I took in middle school to the mall in Nashville, and I was about to eat for the first time at Rainforest Cafe. That is literally how I felt on a couple of the scenes. I had that like, I feel like I'm about to order at Rainforest Cafe.
There's like
for the
that
first time.
background, like rain and sound.
Yeah, just
going
like
on.
the
Yeah.
waters go. And
Yeah.
the doo, 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 doo.
So I'll definitely say this, and this is a shout out to Simon, because he definitely composed the music and he did a fine job. And this is going to be lost on Steven because he never watched Titanic.
Mhm.
But there are some fantastic little bits of Titanic music from James Horner originally composed
Yeah.
in the final sinking of the ship.
Oh, that's fun.
In the end, which like you hear like the kind of like not drums, it's like a bell kind
Yeah.
of thing, and then a couple of these other like big hits that are really iconic in Titanic whenever the ship is sinking. And they did such a good little like homage to it, where it wasn't overt enough to where you're just like, ooh, that took me out. It was
Yeah.
just like, ooh, yeah, I like that.
But I like for me too, the thing that made me realize definitively that like the soundtrack for this movie wasn't quite hitting on even the same level as the first one is
Yeah.
when they play the track from the first one when they've killed the whale.
Yeah.
Basically. What was the name of those things? I keep calling them whales. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't remember.
Toakins or something like that?
Something
Toak.
like Toak.
Toak.
Yeah.
Toak?
Toak.
I thought that was someone's name.
When they kill, that and the
Yeah.
that like song comes in and it hit. I was like, oh, that song. You know?
Yeah.
And I was like, immediately was like, that's a powerful song. I haven't heard a single song up until that point.
Yep.
On this soundtrack that made me have the same feeling of like, oh, the music is getting me. Because I remember even in the first Avatar when I saw it in theaters, when that song hits when the tree's falling,
Mhm.
no, and I was like, oh, my emotions,
Yeah.
So I think the music was serviceable.
Yeah.
Like it worked for what it was and it wasn't bad. At no point was it like, this is atrocious. It just like, I think it struggled to find its own voice to be different from the first one and still
Well,
good.
We were in such a different setting, right? Moving from the forest
Yeah.
to the water, that hearing kind of a lot of the same stuff that we got in the forest felt like a letdown.
It felt weird, yeah.
Where we needed a little more of the element of water to be incorporated in this movie.
Like even if it's like drums that sound like bubbles at different tunes, like boom, 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 or something different.
Maybe
Yeah.
not even that cartoonish, but
But
you
just
could have.
don't give me steel drums is what I'm getting
Right,
at. Like,
yeah.
I don't want it to be like.
But like you could have gone out to kind of like a Polynesia setting and picked up some music there that would be appropriate, right? Like,
Right.
like go listen to Moana soundtrack or something.
Yeah, or some
and
Maori
pick,
or some
pick some of that up.
Samoan influences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was definitely a lot of room to grow, right?
Yeah.
So, Simon is slated for the other Avatar films that are going to come out after this.
Right.
Mhm.
And
Tolkien is the name of the whales.
Tolkien.
Tolkien.
Okay.
But yeah, so like there's definitely room to grow here, which, Simon is still very new. His earliest credit was for composing music was 2016. So he's still very
Pretty
fresh under the
fresh.
belt.
Sure.
Yeah.
And, hopefully he grows into it. And yeah.
Now, can I say in this, the sound design outside of the music
Oh, phenomenal.
was great.
Oh yeah.
There were multiple times when people would like break the surface of the water or there'd be like rustling in the background. And I was borderline almost like trying to check people around me, be like, who's shaking their Coke or who's opened the candy wrapper already, buddy?
Yeah.
No, that's in the movie. That's like just the sound of the crinkle or whatever going on here is really well done.
Seeing
Yeah.
it in IMAX when they were doing those depth charges underwater.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
yes, queen. That's why I'm here.
Yeah. I mean, sound is really important for film. I
Yeah.
think I actually think it's
Well,
the most important part.
Especially
You've
for
said this multiple
something
times.
I
that's
have.
going to
This
be
is on record.
as immersive. Like if you're out here saying the best way to see it is high frame rate, IMAX, 3D, and then the sound is just like doo doo doo.
Yeah.
Like where's the immersion, right?
Yeah.
I'm also glad though they didn't try to have them like talk underwater in some weird way or something.
Right.
I like
the
the
sign
hand
language.
signal.
sign
The
language
sign
was
language was
fun.
fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's move on to plot, which is the plot.
The
Yeah.
meat, the potatoes, the plot.
Yeah, it was fine.
I would say a pro for the plot
Uh-huh.
is that it didn't just retread a bunch of stuff like the first Avatar.
Yeah.
Like it
Mhm.
tells a family story. I would say the emotion is there. I think the writing is a lot better than the first one. So
Yes.
those are all points in the win column for the plot.
Yeah.
I think where it suffered the most from my perspective is we get so many scenes that are just like that slow the movie down. And I know it's supposed to be you're supposed to just live in this world and enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Immerse yourself.
There's so many scenes where it's just fish, more water, fish.
Fish.
And it goes,
Look
and
at
it's
this.
like,
These fish glow.
you could have had 3 of those shots and then moved on to the next plot beat. Instead, we got like 15 of those shots and then moved on to the next plot beat. And then in terms of the actual like story plot, not just like the editing of the length of the film. The middle son, and I struggle with his name. All the kids, I struggle with their names in this one, which is probably not a great sign for the plot.
Well, honestly,
Loak.
I didn't struggle with like Took or Kiria. I really struggled with the two brothers.
The two brothers. It was Loak, which I was like, I don't even know if I heard them say his name.
I'd say it a couple times.
It comes up.
Anyways, his whole storyline where like they don't trust him, they don't believe him, he's the outcast. They did like 8 or 9 story beats with that I felt like you could have given us 4.
And it would have been enough.
And we would have completely gotten it. And y'all could have trimmed the rest of that and given me either time back or spent more time with one of the other kids. Because like, I feel like the older brother, we don't really get to know him much other than he's just there as a comparison for the middle brother.
That's pretty much what it is. And he's there to be the emotional harpoon to pull the rest of to pull the final plot along for emotional resonance.
But I feel like to me, I would have cared a lot more and that scene would have hit a lot harder when he dies if I had cared about his character also.
Well,
you know what I mean?
And it's one of those things too, when you have two brothers like this that are clearly two very different personalities and they're spending a lot of time with the younger one, it's like, well, the older one's going to die.
Oh,
we already know this.
I made a crack to Lauren when we were leaving the theater about, boy, being the noble, diligent older brother in any kind of movie that's like a Native American analog is really dangerous. Like Prey, Brother Bear. You're the older brother, you are in danger.
You're toast.
But it's definitely one of those where I'm actually surprised that it took him that long to kill him.
Oh, sure.
A little bit too.
There was a couple times where I'm like, oh, he's totally dead here.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the emotional drive,
the
for
turning
the whole
point.
Film, where Jake is like, oh no, we're going scorched earth now.
Yeah. Also, it took him like 45 minutes to get to the water, which kind of surprised me.
I kind of like that though.
I didn't hate that. I almost was surprised. I felt like one of the weakest plot points was when they make the decision to leave and go.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like, well, he's chasing us. So if we leave, he won't bother the forest people anymore. It's like, did you like send them a letter and like, bro, we're leaving? Like, how are they supposed to know that you left?
That was kind of a poor thing because it's like, well, the guy that has won us quotation marks the war or the initial kind of skirmish with the humans or sky people at this point, and then they come back and everything, and then they're like, oh, peace out. Bye, guys.
Yeah, like just hung them out to dry.
I'm like, so did they just like get run over at this point, or just like
like what like they were doing?
The sky people are just we're good. We don't want to deal with them
also
anymore.
Like a plot point that kind of like this is being nitpicking in terms of like the movie wouldn't have happened if this had happened, but like when they land on Pandora, why don't they just land on the other side of the planet? Like, why do y'all have to go after Jake Sully?
Yeah,
well,
like you're spending all this money to come out here, just go over there and start like. They would have never known y'all even landed on Pandora if you just wait till it rotates around, you land on that side, and then you can do all the harvesting you need of everything.
Yeah.
I actually almost expected that to be the plot point, that they don't know the humans return.
Right, yeah.
And then it's like, well, he's going out to see the wider world. For some reason, like they're traveling, and then they hit like the harpoon dead whale, and you'll see the human settlement. And it's like, oh my God, we won this one battle, but it's not enough to actually like prevent humans from returning.
Yeah, they've enslaved all of our other brethren.
Now we have to go save, help the water people because they've been under this threat for years that we just weren't aware of because we were on the other side of Pandora,
Yeah. There's some plot conveniences.
Yeah.
Sure. Like the stuff they're harvesting from the whales, what is it called?
I don't even know.
It's not called unobtainium, and that's good enough for me.
It kind of made me miss unobtainium because at least it was an easy to remember.
So I didn't. So the thing for me there is I don't have to know the name of the mineral. I don't have to know the name of the substance. I just have to understand its value and the idea that the sky people are destroying the land, or in this case the water, to obtain it. So I don't care about its name. I just care about the impact and the value of it on Pandora.
So I did feel it was a little weird that we got Free Willy in this film.
Yeah.
But basically the entirety of Free Willy just in the film. and with sans Michael Jackson.
Well, I mean,
but
the whale was never in captivity, though.
Not just Free Willy. We almost got like Free Willy and Free Willy 2, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I did love that. Clearly, like the biggest thing about Pandora is that these, the Na'vi can connect with everything, right?
Yes.
And they can interact with it in less than a like, oh, this is a pet kind of way.
Right,
They
right.
have an actual connection, and I did like the connection that they had with the whales.
Oh, it made after you see the scene where the pod returns to the water people,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then they get hunted. It made that scene so much more impactful, right?
So
Yeah.
I'll definitely say this, and obviously James Cameron has a very much of a environmentalist kind of outlook on life, right? He loves the ocean.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
loves, and the first Avatar is like, hey, don't destroy the environment. This is bad, right?
Right.
Yeah.
This one is just shows how horribly cruel humans can be to animals.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. No
Even
doubt.
if they're fake, it doesn't matter. It's still an analog to
Mhm.
exactly what happens in real life. And we like it's one of those things where it's like, I know what you're trying to do, James Cameron, but I did not need almost a 30-minute sequence of us killing a whale.
Yeah.
Like I did not need this because I know that humans are horrible.
Right.
Well, but even to some extent, like the actual, whaling, right, in the
Mhm.
1800s, whatever,
Yeah.
was violent and horrible. But even then, they at least made more use of the whale than our characters
Yeah.
did here. Like there's more going on than just like, oh, we just took the one thing we want and we just let the carcass float. Like, no, they did more with it than that.
Yeah.
So it was almost like they went
Even
harder,
further.
like harder on. Like the idea of we're hunting and killing these intelligent and beautiful creatures is already bad enough. The idea, we're only doing it for a drop.
yeah,
is way worse.
Yeah, a water bottle sized
Well,
amount of juice.
it
Yeah.
also makes them look kind of stupid because like the whales have this armor you can't shoot through. Why are you not ripping that off and putting it on your vehicles, you idiots?
Feels
Yeah.
like that would be, useful.
Yeah.
Well, and then like, I don't know that the plot really did any favors for Jermaine Clement's character, Dr. Ian Garvin, the marine biologist that's
biologist.
basically
we just
on a
assume
whaling
that he
thing.
dies.
No,
I
he
guess.
he ducks the cable that kills the Aussie hunter dude.
He should have died a much worse death.
right?
Did he
Much
die?
worse.
His arm came off. But did he
Yeah,
die?
he needed to die
Will he be
way
back?
more
They,
than
yeah,
that.
he should have his body should have been flipping through the air and a shark comes up and just snaps it or something.
Yeah, 'cause
go
there-
full Jurassic World on that.
It was funny too because obviously we're watching this final battle and then Holly leans over to me and she was like, when is he gonna die?
I know, right?
And because we were both, I mean, we both love animals and we're like, this
Yeah.
guy has to die in the most cruel possible way
Yeah.
imaginable. And then the next scene he dies, but it's like, he just lost an arm.
He's
like,
not
this needs to be
definitely
way
dead.
worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did like.
There's probably limits of what they could show with
Yeah,
the rating
but
they had.
do
you
want to
know?
be PG-13 at the end of the
Yeah.
day. I did like the whale's arrival, like its actual influence on
yeah.
the fight.
Oh,
that was
yeah.
hype as
That
all
was
get out.
awesome.
He's on the bottom, like stirring up the sand. I was like, get him.
Yeah, the opening to that entire sequence of him jumping out of the water, landing on the boat,
And
and
then
then
just-
everyone
Just wailing on people.
Yeah, well, that and then everyone else, all the Na'vi are like, oh, we can go now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's just like that's when you're like, you want to get up in your seat. You're like, yeah,
Like this
Yeah.
is our opening.
Cameron's good at those moments.
He is, he
like
is.
executing those.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And anything else on plot?
I think everything plot wise was pretty good. There's just some small stuff here and there.
Well,
that
I mean-
most of it for me, the only outside. I don't want to get into nitpicks. I don't think that's valid.
Yeah.
I think it's the time that this movie was
Yes.
3
It
hours.
was a little long.
There's a lot they could have trimmed. There's some story beats that they repeated. They could have trimmed up and to make it shorter. Number one, number two, it does feel sometimes in the plot like the middle movie of like. You got to wait for the next one to find out what's going to happen with
Yeah.
this idea and with this idea.
But I
you know.
I kind of liked that. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
I definitely went into this film not expecting to want more.
Right.
Yeah.
And I walked out of it, I'm like, ooh, I kind of want to see where
Kinda
they
want
go
more.
with this.
Yeah.
Now I think my biggest plot complaints, right? One, the runtime. Because like you've been saying, Ryan, they hit the same point over and over again. It's like, I get it already. Like, save me 30 minutes. Or let me see more of this world in 30 minutes,
Yeah.
right? And then hanging the rest of the plot kind of on that real thin reed of, well, they leave so that Quaritch won't hunt the forest people anymore and he'll follow us, but we didn't give him a reason or a way to follow us. And it just kind of coincidentally happens that he's able to actually follow us almost.
Yeah.
Felt that's a little too flimsy to put all this weight way out on that branch, you know?
Yeah.
If they could have shortened that up a little bit, I don't know how, but come up with just a better premise. I guess we already discussed it really, of like just do the landing on the other side of the moon and then have it not be that, Quaritch is back to hunt Sully, but maybe he's like frothing at the bit to get it and the general's holding him back, right? And then Sully comes across the ocean and now he's their opponent and the general's like, well, yeah, here you go, bud, go get him, you know?
Well, and we don't know what shape the story's going to take in the third one.
Right,
Maybe it'll all make more sense of why they did it the way they did.
We'll get the the hyperspace tracking device will get trotted out.
I do want to say when Quaritch and all of his men came back as avatars, at first I was like, I didn't like it.
It's dumb, right?
I was like, that's a cheap. These guys died. Like it takes all the weight of their deaths out. Like they're just back. Okay, Palpatine suddenly returned. Here we go again. But then seeing what they did with it and the story and how they executed it, I was like, okay, that was really good.
Yeah, I actually thought it was quite novel of them because you live in this is clearly a universe for humanity
far tech, right?
Yeah, they have a really high amount of technology to be able to essentially create clones already, and them basically being able to implant memories of people
and
into these avatars,
personality, etc.
Yeah, that's not a stretch too far.
No,
and I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
And obviously the Sigourney Weaver's character bits like that in the third movie, we're gonna get more of how and why that happened.
Well,
yeah,
but at the moment, it felt a little.
It did feel a little
bit of
like,
a stretch, yeah.
What? Okay.
Well, it's clearly because she was connected to Awa at the beginning of at the end of the first movie,
right?
with her avatar,
when she died,
when she died, and then Awa was like, you know what? I need.
Awa is your dad.
Yeah,
what if
much.
Awa needs an avatar in this world? Hey, by the way, here's this avatar.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where they're going.
Probably,
with it, just because of her connection of whenever she can control a lot of the definitely the sea life and everything.
The fish were responding to her.
Yeah.
Well, the Awa seeds were landing on her, like they did Jake.
Well,
and
the grass doing like that basically pulse around her. That was a great shot, by the way, for the spectacle.
So there's and we're moving into entertainment at this point.
Yeah.
But it's.
I mean, let's just get there. Call it entertainment. Let's
entertainment.
Go.
Here we go. They're definitely setting up her being. I'm not going to say the Messiah, but like the chosen one
chosen by the planet,
the planet to be something. We don't know what yet, but something. And I also think that too, going into the third film, Jake and Neytiri likely will die.
Or maybe get a divorce. I mean, they seem like they were having some pretty big arguments in this movie.
Well, you could definitely see them taking a lesser role.
Yeah.
And honestly, from what we got,
the kids could hold
out
it
of the kids. Yeah, I was real worried about that.
Yeah.
And not to put more on it, but I was real worried about Spider.
I was too.
And like I heard, your opinions before seeing it, and then as the movie progressed, I was like, man, he's really important to the plot. I bet Andrew hates this.
I really like what they did with his character, basically being the he clearly had a lot of conflict with him.
And there's so much emotional weight to work with his backstory.
Yeah,
like that.
I think they could have done a little bit more.
That could just be its own movie of. Well, he couldn't be sent back with the other humans, but he's the son of like the most hated person on Pandora.
Yeah.
Right.
And we don't know who his mother is. So he's like never really had a father figure. And the people he best identifies with, he doesn't really fit in with. And
because he can't be an Avi.
Yeah. Like there was so much to work with there that we got bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And based on how this movie ends, maybe, number 3, it's going to be the Spider Kyria show. I don't know.
Kiri.
The Kiri Spider show.
And it's and this is just getting into weird realm, but like there's clearly some kind of romantic connection with them.
Well, I think
or maybe brother and sister. I don't know.
Well, they're both the weird outcasts, right? Because their circumstances are bizarre. They don't fit with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So the two of them have bonded basically on that premise, right?
Yeah.
Of no one gets me. Well, no one's going to get me either here. Well, let's get each other at least, right?
Yeah.
And now how hair sexy Cameron wants to get with that is that's up to him.
Hey man,
he's got them dreads. You never know.
It's all cut loose. The third movie, we're going places, boys. I every time y'all say it though, I laugh because like a white dude with dreadlocks named Spider sounds like every weed dealer on every college across America. You know what I mean? Oh, you got to talk to Spider.
His actual name is Miles. Nobody calls me that. Everybody calls me Spider.
Right. Like, every time I hear it, I just laugh and I just picture like Rastafarian music playing out of a Honda Accord. He like rolls up. Anyways, entertainment. I was entertained. I liked it. I think what's weird to me though is maybe it's just because I'm so fresh out of seeing the second one. Is even though the plot's better, I feel like the writing's better. I feel like the performance
The dialogue is better.
The dialogue is way better. And the spectacle's better. I don't know if it's going to have the same nostalgia factor as the first one will. Just because the first one was such a like cultural moment.
Well, it just became its own meme, right?
It did. It became this thing. So like this one doesn't feel as special to me, as weird as that is to say, as the first one did. Because the first one was just like this huge event. You've got to go see Avatar. You know? And this one's a very good sequel, and again, ostensibly on paper, a better movie in every way. So I want to say I'll rewatch this one more than I would watch the original.
Yeah,
but I don't know. There's more for me, like from a nostalgia factor almost now about the first one, where the second one, even though it's a better movie, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to have that a decade from now. I don't know.
I was going to say that's a take that you need a decade to marinate on, right? Yeah.
So here's a question. And so before the film came out,
right,
James Cameron said that it was okay to go to the bathroom in his film because you're going to want to see it again.
Yeah.
I want a show of hands or voices, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
If you made it through the film without having to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm impressed with Ryan because we both know his limitations.
Ryan is an old man with an old man bladder.
Yeah, I mean, like, who do you think I am? You think I'm going to get up in the middle of a film and go to the bathroom?
No,
please,
I am
get out of here.
Really good at movies of like, I make sure I don't drink anything like an hour before. I hydrate early in the day.
Oh, man.
I use the bathroom well in advance.
I just go right before the film, and then I'm good.
No, I walked into the film. And my wife and I split.
He's got 3 Cokes.
Yeah,
waters.
32 ounce.
My wife and I split. Like a big Sprite. We're eating popcorn, and like as the film started, I was like, "Did I go to the bathroom before?" It's like I don't remember. It won't matter. And you know what? It doesn't matter. There were so many people in our film who got up and like they must have been going to the bathroom because they weren't coming back with snacks or something.
Yeah.
Like if you got hungry, it's been 2 hours, and you're like, "Dang, I'm hungry." I can understand that, right?
Yeah.
But this whole, like, I got up and I left, and then 45 minutes later, I got up and I left and I came back and was like, you don't have anything in your hands. What are you doing?
Yeah. Okay, so we all made it through without having to go to the bathroom. So we technically don't have to see this movie a second time because we missed a scene.
We're not obligated.
Yeah, we're not obligated to. I want to see it again.
I do too, but I
don't know if I like.
I think I will wait for it to come out on a home release or Disney Plus before I watch it again.
I want to try and see it in IMAX.
So IMAX was fine.
Yeah.
I saw it in IMAX. There's definitely some scenes that were shot for IMAX. I think the whole thing is technically in IMAX.
Yeah.
But a lot of the scenes don't, like the dialogue scenes or like whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's not like it's really the underwater stuff. But IMAX, it's the same problem with other stuff. After you've seen like the first 20 minutes, you don't even like register,
register
that you're seeing
bigger,
more.
smaller.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's worth it.
Yeah.
But I want to see it with the high frame rate 3D if at all possible. But I don't think I'm going to be able to, or at least I won't know until you buy the ticket and sit down and find out.
Yeah.
And so I'm not willing to risk another, 20 some odd dollars to go to the theater and sit down and be like, like immediately the first 2 or 3
Which we didn't
scenes.
We didn't get into it. We meant to get into it in spectacles. So I'm gonna flip us back to that real quick.
Sure.
Real quick.
And I want to know if y'all saw the same thing I saw. So when the train derails, right?
Yeah.
And like the first car or 2 buckles, and then one car goes almost vertical. In the process of it going vertical, I had for a moment, I was like, are they trying to go into slow-mo here? Am I getting like a stutter?
It did feel quite choppy.
Right? And then I never experienced that again in the film, and they didn't hit us with slow-mo really, which was nice.
So there was only one other scene, and it's actually in the trailer too, where
they're like chasing them through the reeds.
Yeah,
or whatever.
they're chasing them through the reeds, and then there's a shot of a crab robot or crab mech. It's not a robot.
It leaps or whatever.
It leaps at them and like swings at them, and that shot was very weird. I don't know what it was about that specific one. But
I feel like that shot hurts because like it was filmed in 3D and then it's not 3D, and like that shot, like because it's such a action directly at the camera
Yeah.
that there's almost not enough frames there to capture the depth perception. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it feels really weird the way that thing moves.
Yeah.
But it's also like an alien robot underwater. Like there are so many factors here that like my brain is like, I don't have anything to compare this to, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I didn't notice any choppiness specifically in the train scene or the crab scene, but it was more of like a lot of choppiness in a lot of the action scenes because of the 3D.
yeah, I
Where
didn't get
again,
any of that.
I feel like if they had done the 48 frame stuff in the 3D,
It would've been
would have
fine.
smoothed all that out, at least in those scenes.
Yeah, I think ultimately the biggest point for me on entertainment was coming out of the film, I was like, dang, I'm actually interested to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that to me
I think that's really important.
That's impressive, right? Because I went in expecting to be like, it's fine, whatever, make $1 billion, see if I care, you know?
Yeah.
But no, it's like, wow, like the story's going places. Like there are characters that I'm interested to see more development. There's interactions that I'm interested to see more development of, like the spider Quaritch thing.
Yeah.
Kiri.
Kiri.
You know, how the family recovers and all this. Like there's plots there that I want to see played out.
Yeah. And as we're kind of wrapping up here, I think my final big point of entertainment that I really liked was, so the first Avatar ends with Jake opening up his eyes as a Na'vi completely at that point. And that's more of like an awakening of, you know, this is who I am now, everything like that. Then you go to the end of this film where you basically get the same thing, where you have a really heartfelt kind of vision where they're talking to Awa.
They're connected.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're connected to Awa, and they're kind of like looking at this scene with their dead son, and then it zooms in on Jake's face, and then instead of being awakened, he is now enraged by the loss that he has basically experienced from this, and you know that this next film, it is going to burn this planet to the ground and get as much revenge as possible.
Oh, and can speaking, now you brought that up, can I also say the scene between Jake and our tribal elder where they're like, well, you know, we need to keep moving. And he's like, your child rests with our ancestors now. You are part of our tribe. It's like, oh, yeah, like
that was a great. And I really like. I mean, like the planet just kind of like absorbs his body,
pulls him back in. Yeah,
but yeah, that moment where he's like, he now rests with our ancestors. Like, oh yeah,
like that hits. Woo.
Yeah, but yeah, that end scene is. I really like that they did that, because clearly like that's going to be an ongoing theme probably.
Sure, yeah,
and that kind of like realization that Jake is now going scorched earth probably levels of, we're going to remove these people and never have them come back, levels of attack.
We'll
or
win
war,
the
whatever.
war,
Yeah.
not just a battle.
Yeah. So, with that kind of thing, that's kind of where I think that Jake is going to probably die by the end of the next film.
Yeah, I feel like what they'll probably do is the trilogy. The
Yeah.
first three will be like the Jake and Neytiri
Story.
kind of story.
Yeah.
And they will have everything in place by the end of the third one for the children to take over in 4 and 5, if, again, financially viable and they want to keep going.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of all the time that we've kind of hit for. We've talked a lot about Avatar, and this is likely going to be one of our longest episodes because guess what? It's on brand with Avatar.
Well, it's also a really long movie.
Yeah. But yeah, obviously if you liked what you heard and you would like to continue supporting the show, obviously listen to our episodes. They're all free on any kind of podcast host that you can access.
Shoot us a review. Shoot us a like.
Yeah.
Leave some comments on socials.
But if you really like what you heard, we have a Patreon that offers, just for $1 a month, bonus episodes guaranteed once a month of just content that exists that we create.
It is technically content you will enjoy. Love it.
It exists. We made it. You'll love it.
It's $1 and you get access to all the bonus episodes. They're a different format. They are not just more reviews like this. It's like we have, rankings of fast food places. We rank Bond opening themes. We get into discussions on anime starter recommendations.
Yeah, just
we
all
get
sorts
into
of fun stuff.
All sorts of stuff. And it's just $1 and it is great stuff.
And what that does is that helps us pay for hosting fees.
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
Keep the lights on.
Yeah, keep the lights on, those kind of things, and bring you just more content. And that's
Yep.
kind of what we love. I mean, that's why we're doing the podcast, right? We love doing this. And we would love it if you loved us doing this too.
Yeah, and we love hearing the feedback. So once again, leave us those reviews. Jump on Discord. Comment on our socials. Let us know you loved it, you hated it. Why didn't we talk about this more? Why?
Yeah.
Or talk about this movie.
Suggest things.
We've got a big
Yeah.
list of stuff we want to cover, but if you want to add to it, we'd love to hear it.
Also, share this with somebody. If you know someone who likes podcasts and likes movies, likes TV shows, send them a link. Tell them about us, whatever.
And that sounds like all the time we have. So until next time, or next week, next time,
Next time.
Next time.
Next time.
I'm Andrew,
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Steven.
and every spoiler was intended.
What I was going to say is just while recording, I'm going to shoot the hand up quick if I'm about to cough
yeah, that's
or
fine.
sneeze or anything.
That's typical.
Do we need to mention about my voice or just let him
No.
figure it out?
Yeah.
No, we'll just be
Who
like,
cares?
if you have a moment where it's like, I'll be like, oh, Ryan's just trying to come
Yeah.
back from the unknown plague.
Yeah.
Right. I'm making my own strain.
Yeah, COVID negative, flu negative, strep negative. What's he got? We don't know. He's just sick.
He's patient
Life
zero.
positive.